Daniel, welcome to the show. Let me introduce you first. And today we are honored to have a true modern Renaissance man with us, Daniel Stih. I probably say your name a little bit wrong, but English is not my first language, so I say most words a little bit wrong. He's a thought process engineer, host of the Daniel Stih podcast, rocket scientist, best-selling author, and hit songwriter. He also holds the extraordinary record of being the first to climb 30 previously unclimbed mountains. Daniel journey is one of relentless curiosity innovation, from aerospace engineering, semiconductor manufacturing to pioneering work in environmental health consulting. He has did in many, many things. I'm very grateful that you are here today and that you took the time to have this conversation with me. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for inviting me.
It's my honor. We've talked a few times, and it's like I'm right now in a place of my life where I'm so blessed with meeting extraordinary people such as yourself and have them in the context of this show, which is to meet extraordinary thought leaders from the most difficult, different fields possible and talk with them about their journey of becoming, how they became the person that they are today. But it's also, by the end of it, have a intersection between psychology, leadership, and business, I would sort of say. So it's like the world is crazy right now, as it is ever. And that's like one of the things why I wanted to talk to world leaders from diverse industries, just because to understand what's happening on different parts of the world, and also how can we create more thought leaders so that the future is secured and we don't all blow ourselves up for the next 5 years or something. So that's my intention for talking to you. So just some quick small talk. Tell people where you're from right now.
Well, I currently live in Utah near Zion National Park, but I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've lived in California. I've lived all over America, and I rock climb. So, of course, I travel. I've climbed in the Alps, by the way,
All right.
Yosemite, Interlaken, Alaska, so forth. I get around.
How did you grow up?
How did I grow up?
Yeah.
Oh, what you mean, like dysfunctional family, or did I grow up on a farm or in the city, or?
Well, one of the things that I'm so interested in is how it's almost it's super hard to predict what kind of environment produces what person. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out with the show, but also with the educational platform which we are building, is how to raise
I
more
got it. I
thought
understand the
leaders.
question,
It's
Daniel.
like that's like my
So,
focus of
yeah,
interest.
so I'll
Tell us a
give you
little
an
bit of the early chapters of your life.
well, I'll give you an example, I think, which is what your question revolves around. I
One of
used
the
to,
examples. Oh, sorry. I thought you asked me to give you an example.
um, well, I thought of an example myself. So one of the things I do, I write songs. I'm a musician as well as a rocket scientist. And and growing up and being young and trying to be a musician, and then as a teenager, and then even in your 20s when you're trying to make it as a musician, you keep reading in these magazines. I don't know who writes these articles. The editors write about how if you all your famous rock stars had traumatic childhoods, and that's what you need to do to be a rock star. You have to have a bad childhood. And I completely, as an engineer, disagree with. There's no data behind that. That's just what make common sense. Oh, you must have had a bad experience to come here. No, quite the opposite. I mean, plenty of bands from great functional families and wonderful parents that have made it big, right? So I personally think, and there's some biology behind this. Uh, what's his name? He studies cell biology.
Mm.
It's not as much as it's a combination of your DNA and your environment, but your environment doesn't dictate it by itself. If you're a resilient person and you want to get out of that environment, you can, but you don't need to have a bad environment to have that kind of struggle to push you. Depends on what kind of person you are.
Interesting. One of the words that came to mind is dandelion children. It's a beautiful flower, I think, that grows almost everywhere. And there is when I studied the correlation between hyper success and dysfunctional families in a way, I found that some people almost exist, and it's a miracle that they have been successful. But it feels like some people just they will find a way to blossom regardless of what they are surrounded by. It's like,
Yeah, that reminds me of, I just painted a picture in my head. A lone dandelion flower growing out of the crack in the sidewalk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sometimes that's completely exists. So you feel that one of the things that is not true, that is a bias, is the idea that the Batman story, in order to become a hero, somebody needs to like that you have to have had a Nexus event happening to you. A
Uh,
Nexus event as like, for instance, Batman's parents got shot. Spider-Man's uncle got shot. It's like it's all these situations where through pain, trauma, through or something positive, maybe like the
You know,
Fantastic Four,
actually,
where they have that, it's like that spikes that ultra sense of development within you, where there's a need for you to become great. Do you feel that this is something that is applicable to your life, or something where it's not really congruent from a storytelling basis?
it's not, because it can be both. Because certainly if you, let's say you're Batman and your parents are killed by robbers, bad people, you might grow up with, I'm going to fight crime. That's my purpose because my parents were killed. If you're a doctor and your parents died from cancer, or your brother or sister, you might go, I'm never going to have a family member die again. I'm going to be a doctor. To me, that's almost easier than the person who has a perfect childhood and they have to look deep inside themselves to go, you know what? I have everything, everything's perfect. What do I want to do? What's my passion, my purpose?
Yeah, it's I can't really explain very well, but for me, I feel one of the commonalities I've seen from the extraordinary people I've talked to and people I try to model myself after is that they often have been bitten by something, like, and they try to turn the venom into a tonic that they can use to better their society. And it also becomes,
Yeah.
it's like that's
Well, you know what? I'll give you an example of the one that's not bitten by venom. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the one where, what do I want to do? And he's a blend because he grew up in a tough childhood, a German family. But the way he puts it is, I knew I wanted to get to America and I like bodybuilding. His thing was bodybuilding. That was his passion. He started by following his passion, and he got a lot of criticism from it. And, I
oh
can, because, he's posing, you know, pretty much naked except for his underwear with his muscles with oil on him. Um, and, it just wasn't the thing at the time, but he wanted to do it. And then I think the story goes, he saw something in America and he's like, I need to go there, get out. So that
yeah.
was his seed. His seed was something he was interested in, not not the hard lifestyle, the hard family. How am I going to get out of here?
No, I love the story of Alan because he's a I guess what I'm thinking out loud is there's light and dark seeds, but they both pretty much turn you into a visionary of some sorts in a way. And there's like multiple paths to pursuing a higher calling in a way. And for him, in a way, it was like he was this visionary. He would see like there's an opportunity there for me to become more than where I am right now, and he followed it. And I guess like
Hmm.
when something traumatic happens, it's in a sense also a map where it's like a certain stasis is so unbearable for you that you need to go on a path so that this will not happen to other people. Well, it's also a kind of vision, but it doesn't necessarily, I guess, like have to happen to you in a manner where you need to go, I don't know, have this traumatic thing, but you can also have a
You can
positive
have
adventure, so to say,
you could have a problem you want to solve. Like, do I
Mhm.
want to cure cancer? Do I want to make movies that make people happy? Or there's a lot of bad movies, dark movies these days. You can solve a problem, pick a problem to solve, and it doesn't have to be one that's you are immediately affected by. It could just
Yeah.
be one that in your heart you look around the world and go, you know what? That's my battle. I'm gonna pick that battle. I'm gonna fight that one.
How were you as a chat? Because you shouldn't exist from my point of view, because you have so many different personality patterns to you where you're like this ultra talented engineer, but you also have this artistic side to yourself in a way. And you're also like a business owner and you don't take yourself too seriously. I feel like there's so many different parts of you. And sometimes for me, for instance, I guess I'm very simple from my temperament and how I am. It's like I see big images and then I go on an adventure and try to build that in a way. But I'm very incompetent, for instance, in the engineering aspect. Can't code, I'm not very good at operations and
Well,
everything.
I tell you what, Daniel, none of this is easy.
Oh,
Okay. So college, I worked 40 hours in a factory and went to engineering college. I had no life. It was pain and suffering. Come home at midnight and study till 4 in the morning and go back to school at 7 a.m. for 4 years. And then with the music, it's the same thing. You know, you have to practice. There's no matter how talented you are. So I think it's more carving out time for yourself. If you just want to play video games all day, that's fine, but you know, it's kind of like writing songs. If you just play other people's songs and never write your own, what do you expect to all of a sudden be have a job doing that? So you it's what you want to do. I just wanted to explore all this stuff. So I carved out the time and values like I okay, you can have three or maybe three, five things on your plate, you know, and your family's going to be one, and your job might be one. Five things, and I'd move, shuffle them in and out as I needed to, but I'd stick to prioritizing, and a lot of hard work is what I'm saying. It's not easy to do all these things. It's work.
yeah, that's an interesting thing because I was always very interested by people who like Da Vinci, for instance, like people where you look at them as like, how exactly is it possible that one person during this short amount of time like achieved like the resemblance of innovation and mastery that is truly enriching the next generation with something in more than one domain? It's like,
Yeah, well, consider what a Da Vinci day would have been like. When it was time of war in engineering, they hired him to do the engineering pretty much 80% of the time. What else did he do besides eat and sleep? There wasn't all these other things to do. There were no phones, there were no computers. You know, you would always be with pen and paper designing and thinking. And this is the thing about technology, by the way. It can become a trap because so much of your time is spent messaging people, Googling stuff on the internet that's not actually creative or productive time. And we all know this, but we still can't escape that trap. So back to how he did it, it was easy. There was no TV.
yeah, I had an interesting experience. I was in between companies. I was traveling the world for a year, I think 2 years ago. And it's like, I was a long time in cities before. And I was like with my friend, Daniele, a beautiful Italian photographer. And we went to interview some monks in the mountains. And I still remember this. We had this shitty hotel and I was just laying down and I remember it's like, this was the most vivid state my brain was ever in. It was like so many ideas and visions, and it was just
Hmm.
like being tapped in. And I realized, oh, maybe the modern man can't see God anymore because it's too loud around us. And it reminded me also, it's like you can't see the stars within the city anymore because there's like
Hmm.
light pollution. It's like maybe there's like noise, distraction, everybody having permanent access to your phone, where this also disrupts the very thing that like helped us to get this far as a species to begin with. How did you create when you in your earlier part of your life the space for you to innovate and the space for you to discover?
Well, I'm lucky with the mountain climbing. That's
Mhm.
probably what gives me the balance of checking out. So last week I was out for 8 days with no electronic device, no phone, no emergency satellite. If I was missing on the ninth day, it was probably not a good thing. You might not be talking to me now because I was disconnected. But it was so wonderful to be away for 8 days. So that's how I probably. But what I do take out there is a little notebook and into my camera, not my phone, an old school small digital camera. I record myself speaking like this was a tape recorder, but it's in a little camera, just so I could take notes on what thoughts I'm getting. When I was younger, after this engineering job, actually, I'm in college still, and I think I got a technician job, which I'm very lucky to have this technical job while I'm going to college. I'm out of the dumpster. I'm not flipping hamburgers anymore. I wanted to go climb El Capitan in Yosemite. I think I had 2 vacation days. I wanted to go. This is my priority. Pick, okay, well, getting into nature. Nature's a priority. And that's what I want to do, climb the mountain. I was late getting back to work. I should have got fired, but I also been really lucky in that my bosses they give you the we're disappointed in you, Daniel, kind of speech. But then they're also a little bit inspired. Like they didn't fire me. This has happened more than once because they knew I wasn't being belligerently hooky, but they understood my need and my passion for that, and I did come back only a day late. I think I inspired them. Anywho, I that's how I balance that. I know I've got to get away. I feel like I want to, so I do.
Yeah, interesting. So it's like you come, yeah. Hmm.
When I was an engineer, the aerospace engineer, looking in retrospect, I'm like, are you crazy? You're gonna lose a job that's first of all, can you get it a lot of money, a great job? Why? Just so you can go climb a mountain and without hesitation though, I would be gone. And I would come back though, fresh, inspired, full of ideas. And both before I left, because I was leaving, and after I got back, I would full speed ahead in terms of creativity and productivity, in terms of the mindset and engineering. It all worked out. So again, they didn't fire me. I guess I'm lucky, but my attitude is that's how it should work if you're creative type and engineer. You can't just punch a clock and
Yeah.
expect to be have results.
It's I had a conversation with one of the community members, Ina. She's a founder too, and she was very mad at herself that she's going to Colombia right now to have an adventure there. And one of the things I told her that gave me some relief to carve out freedom for myself was I discovered that back in I think like in the 1940s or 50s, the great authors, Hemingway and all these kind of people, they had a relationship with adventure as gathering ammunition
Mm.
in a way. The idea of like it's something flows through you and you need to travel around the world to go to where other people are or where nobody is to be infected with that very creative seed that flows through you. So it's not just like
You know, when you put it that way, Daniel, thinking about thinking about how it works, it almost seems like what these people are doing, and maybe myself as well, we follow our heart.
yeah.
And that it's not even just following the heart. We listen to our thoughts. Go here, go there. Why? Because you should. And then it's not just going on the vacation to out of the country or to mount climb. I do the same thing at work with my engineering. I'm listening and I'm following that thought. So if it takes me out of the country on a vacation and adventure and exploration, that's it. If I'm at work and it goes, why don't you try this? You know, in your engineering job or your business for your business, it's following your thoughts, intuition.
My father stems from long enough looking back from Bedouins, people from the desert, and they saw visionaries more as prophetic individuals who could listen to the or who would receive letters from God and were able to decipher them in a way. And they were like some companies still have it, like a chief prophet or chief visionary in a way, where they would point the way or like open them up to creative impulses. And I think like one of the great tragedies of our time is that we've forgot the ability to listen or even acknowledge the fact that something that knows is within us. And it's like one of my favorite person who really motivated me to start this company is Socrates. And Socrates, for instance, like when asked, like, is they told him you're the wisest man in the world, you're like, I am not, because there's this, he called this daemonian in a way, like this entity within him that he would consult if he was about to do something, and it would say yes or particularly no in regards to impeding on a path that wouldn't be meaningful or engaging in a dynamic with somebody where that thing knew something about him that it wasn't really rational and explainable to him. And I think like one of the things that I'm really passionate about is like helping people to carve up enough time to listen to that thing anymore and form a covenant, a relationship with it in a way. How did you
I
discover
think I think what's stopping people is the risk involved. Like I think a lot of people hear that voice, but then they're like, oh, you know, I shouldn't go climbing. I'll be late for work, or I might be a day late back. I'll lose my job. And in their head, they imagine the worst possibility, the risk, the fear.
Yeah, I don't think I ever spoke about this, but one time my father died, got into jail. That's how our relationship started, and he was a strange guy. But in that particular case, he could have avoided this if he wouldn't have listened to his conscience on protecting a particular family
Ah,
who was being persecuted. And I always never got this because I was like, I grew up in the Western world. We are trained in this industrial system of like, you do what's good for you right now, and there's no higher thing. But in my mind, like my father, he told me this in one of the letters I received from prison, is that he said, like, what are you talking about? It's like, whatever happens as a consequence of me following that impulse is the best possible thing that can happen, even if I'm going to jail, if I'm dying or whatever. And I like this Kierkegaardian decision of faith, where it's like there's,
mhm.
even if it doesn't make sense for you right now, over a long enough period of time, that agent within your own
Yeah,
soul.
you have to trust it. You have to
Yeah.
trust your intuition. Otherwise, what good is it?
Yeah, and it's a strange trust in a way, because usually what I found also is you things not always go good when you follow that impulse immediately. It's like you have a breakup, you start a stupid business that maybe doesn't work out, or you're like traveling to a mountain, maybe you're going to die. But it's like there's this relationship you need to have with the unknown. How did you?
Well, I get the reverse too, Daniel. There are plenty of times I've gone out to climb and I get the almost like a pull on my shoulder, like no.
Oh,
And
really?
and several times it's even after I've gotten special written permission by the park rangers to do something by myself. They're overconfident. I'm like, you guys are too confident in me. I'm glad you allowing this, but like, I'm not that so sure. And I would go out and on that time, for instance, and I'm like, everything looks safe. I just got a bad vibe, and I turned around. I went back and climbed it, mind you, 2 years later, and it was quite dangerous. But many times I turn around even when things like I may try again, move forward, and I'll get the same thing, like a no feeling. I'm like, why? Makes no sense. I've come this far, I've traveled, I've packed my bags, I've taken off from work, I've planned it. Are you kidding me? And I'll try to move forward again. I'll get that no feeling. Darn. And I've learned it, so I just turn around and go back. I'm like, another day will come and everything will be perfect. And then when I get the intuition that the feeling it's good, it's full speed ahead, and people will go, "You're crazy." I'm like, "Nope, I'm good." Like I'm good. I know I'm good. How do I know I'm good? Because I trust it and all works out. But it's both ways. I don't just plow ahead, um, stubborn headed just because I get the idea to do something. As I go, I keep being flexible, and like, what if, flexible. Pay attention. Don't just go down that path now.
How did you form this covenant with your? How would you call this? Because I had an interesting conversation yesterday about like there was this visionary. She gave a talk about AI and how maybe the universe is has a participatory element to it in a way where maybe it's like we have a subconscious, but through our conversation, we pondered about the idea if there's a top conscious as well, like something that knows about the future already, where if we listen enough, we can engage with it. How did you form this covenant with this creative impulse, and how would you describe what that is? That thing that pulls you on your shoulder, that thing that tells you to climb that mountain or to do all those kind of things in a way. Because I feel it's that's something I'm very interested in the process of mapping out, so to say, through technology, right?
That's a hard one to answer, Daniel, because being an engineer, it's actually really hard for me to do like meditation or these high woo processes of what we're speaking of, like getting downloads and stuff like that. I'm like, I I'm very analytical, which is maybe why the rock climbing helps. And I've also heard stuff like martial arts helps or dance helps, stuff where you have to use your body. And and then you're just going with the flow. It's like letting your body do its thing. And I think that has something to do with the thought process. Um, you just, you, I don't know what, say, ask me again.
I think it's one of the things that I'm interested in is mapping out the origin of that voice. What do you think that is? What is your relation to it? How did it come about? And if you had
Oh,
a name for it, how would you call it?
it's not a voice. I know some people get a voice, it's a feeling. And the way I would describe when you say, okay, how do I know if I have the feeling or not? Is it's kind of like a smell. Like you go on your first impression. Like, does that stink? Like, say you had moldy bread in the refrigerator or something in the fridge. Like, can I eat that? You smell. First impression. If you have to overthink it, it's probably okay to eat. You're not going to get sick. Your first smell, go, whoa. So it's the same thing with the feeling. I'm like, well, what am I feeling? I mean, if you have to ask, you don't have one feeling or the other, but it is tuning out. I see people on hikes with earphones in, listening to music. That's not going to work. You're not present. You do have to be present. Shut down the phone, shut off the TV, shut off your computer to feel. Otherwise, you're distracted. You can't pay attention to your feelings.
How do you balance out being a I think it's very rare that people have like a visionary component while also being,
To see stuff, you mean, as well as feel it.
yeah, that's crazy for me because it's like I think that's such an interesting intersection in a way because I'm like,
It is, back to Schwarzenegger. I was a little disappointed in his book because prior to that, he spoke about how he could see and feel grains of sand on the beach in California, even though he'd never been to the beach.
oh, really?
What? Yeah, and his vision, he said his vision is so strong. I'm like, how do you get that clear of vision? That is cool. And there's people like that. I envy him. I mean, I wish, how do you do that? And I've never been able to get out of him. It's not in his book. I think that's how some people, they're born and they're able to see visions. Me, I'm not like that. It's just I think about it. Oh, I want to go here. I want to do that, and then I feel it. And most important, you have to start. If if say I think I want to play the guitar, you can't think about it. You have to start playing before you feel if maybe I should play the bass or the piano instead. You have to go play the piano to see, oh yeah, that's my instrument. Like, where do I want to live? You can only think about it and Google it so much. You have to drive there and spend some time to see how you feel. You can only think about this thought so much. You have to take action and do something to know I'm going to change course, or this is not the course. I'm going to go back and do something else.
Yeah, I can only express how it is for me. It's like I feel just like you're describing the smell, like in regards to behavior choices. I think the our brain fundamentally is organized in an agentic constellation in a way. So I think like there's some people are just born with predispositions for certain abilities in a way. But it's like for me, I was always a dreamer, a visionary in this regard, very untalented in other ways that involved very complex procedures like high level management or like coding or those kind of things. But for me, it always feels like there's a prompt where there's a circumstances in a way where you ask a certain question and that part in your brain gets triggered and then it casts almost like a story forward in a
Oh, give
way.
me an example.
Okay, my father got super sick like I think like 10 years ago or something, and it was unbearable for me. It was just like he was the most important person in my life. Like we had this special connection when he was in prison, and the fact that he got out was I felt betrayed by the entire universe almost because I was like, I just waited for this guy. And it's like now he's 6 months to live. Like I want to prove myself in front of him. And it's like during that time, one of the questions that I repeatedly would ask myself is like, under what invention would be necessary so that others wouldn't feel that in a way. And it's like for instance, out of this, I saw like images of that sounds stupid, like a library with speaking books where if you would open them up and you can see the ghosts of the orator come out and converse you and comfort you and support you in your bereavement and give you advice. And but it was that pain prompt
Hmm.
vision sequence that
Hmm.
happened for me. And I think like fundamentally it's like it's true that our brain is agentically organized in a way. I feel this is how you are casting these long side projections in a way. There's a even with Arnold, maybe he felt stuck where he was and he needed
Hmm.
to almost like cast like a potential new reality onwards to help him to get away from that little village that he was stuck in a way. But I think
Hmm.
it's like discomfort.
What you're really speaking about is why are we here? Our purpose. What's life about? And it is kind of mysterious how it all works.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
there's
know.
also a very strange dynamic between unhappiness and innovation, I feel. It's like this. I feel like sometimes one of the reasons why the great artists are so miserable is just because they are the reason why they invented something wonderful is because they felt they were in the dark and they needed to build their own star. And it's like
Hmm.
that's something I sometimes feel there's a need for them to do that in a way. It's like, and I would be curious for you too. It's like, why are you climbing all those dangerous mountains? It's like, what the fuck?
Oh, so, actually, the mountains are not about adrenaline or danger. I, of course, manage the danger because I train and I've been climbing a long time and I know how to be place protection. I know how to move my body. I just love being out in nature. I just like being out there.
What was a deprivation from your earliest chapters of your life that later on led to you growing particularly strong in a particular area of yourself?
Deprivations.
As like, for instance, I sometimes feel like to challenge it, this original idea is like sometimes I feel people grow very strong in areas where there was something missing in
Hmm.
their life. Or do you feel
Well,
like
I'll tell you what, I was the worst climber ever imaginable when I started. Uh,
really?
yeah, the worst, worst, worst. Like you couldn't push me up the easiest thing and I would be terrified. But it's what I wanted to do, so I stuck with it. And then people wouldn't climb with me because I wasn't very good, so it was hard to find a partner. And that's part of the reason I eventually started climbing by myself half the time. And then all of a sudden, I accumulated all this knowledge and experience climbing, and I was better than anybody else. But it certainly wasn't a talent from the start. I think if people can develop quote talent if they just keep trying to do something they like. But I tangented from your question, I think.
One of the things that I like also is I wrote a book once called The Future Blueprint. It was about helping people to make long-term dreams and strategies for their life. And one of the reasons that I wrote that was I really like didn't like who I was for a long time. I feel like when I started to study, nobody really asked me like, who do you want to be moving forward? And you're one of the coolest people I know. It's like rocket scientist to rock star and to engineer. How did you come up with writing this narrative for your future and then having your deeds follow it? Or how did this? How did what
Sure.
was the first time where you write out your plan, so to say, or did you not have one?
I did not have a plan. I did not have a plan at all. When I was in college, the computer system that's supposed to tell you what you want to do based on an aptitude test told me to be a bus driver.
Oh, really?
My counselor said, "No, you're doing calculus. You're smart. Stay in math and science." And I loved math and science, so I stayed in it. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, just that I liked math and science, so stay in engineering. And of course, the money's good. The music was one of my earlier passions, but having to apply so much time at school while I was working full time, I couldn't be in a band. I couldn't follow that passion. So once I graduated with engineering, I'm like, let me go pick that up again. And ironically, I'm like, you can figure out anything's figure outable, is the saying. I I went down the engineering path because I'm like, you can't be a musician, you can't write a song. I didn't know how to write a song. Go figure. Now, now I have an app. I wrote an app that's on the App Store to help anybody who's never written a song write a song in 10 minutes because I broke that process down. Uh, but at one time I couldn't do it. So in terms of a plan, um, I got to do everything. Life is short. So the plan is, okay, You need work, you need school, do this. Okay, now you're gonna climb out. Okay, now go back to work. Now go do some music, come back to work. Now what else can we do? Here we go. Versus the boring I actually sometimes wish I could almost be just one person, like just one path. Anyway, in terms of plan, each thing has a plan. Go climb a mountain, go do that business, go do market that business, go try to sell with that business, go back to work, do some engineering work. Plans in each thing, but not the overall picture.
How did you just, that's such a beautiful
Oh,
idea.
we
How,
could use Da Vinci as an example.
tell
What would
me.
his plan have been? Did he have a plan to paint the Mona Lisa while at the same time drawing helicopters and doing engineering stuff? I think he was dictated by we're at war, so do some engineering. He got a commission to do the piece, I think. That's probably money for him, I'm thinking. Maybe because engineering wasn't paying him so much. I think he worked for the state more. I'm just making this up. But in terms of his plan, I think it's the same thing. In the moment, what do I feel like doing? What can I do? What I'm inspired to do? What do I have to do because I need money? Kind of that thing versus a straight trajectory. If he had that, I think he would have just been a painter or just an engineer, possibly.
Interesting. So you feel constraints are an accelerator for creativity in regards to this some path.
Maybe. And also, what comes to mind is if we think of a startup, a big business, where clearly you want a linear path, that's all you're doing, that's your passion, then you're driven not just by creativity, innovation, but by the money.
Yeah.
And you know the old saying, whenever money gets involved, the spirit of something gets kind of tarnished because you got to make compromises. And then how many billionaires are happy? I think we had this conversation once, or I had it with someone else. Like, yeah, I have a friend who's who has a lot of money. He's not really happy because that's why, right? You get stuck on that path as well.
Yeah, no, and then also it's, I don't know, I need to introduce you to Alex Kim. He's a friend of mine. He's a developer. He's a musician as well, a singer, and he's really a philosopher. He's right now in Tokyo, I think. And I told him like the vision they had for building this Alexandrian library together with other people, where it's like instead of like YouTube videos, you have like AI agents that speak like the author and consult them, but also do behinds on their regard. And he saw something I didn't see. Is the idea of like, oh, the next generation of thinkers, we will have our agent do the work in our stead, and it will free us up to follow. He calls it the itch. It's like following that thing within yourself that tells you to do something in a way. And I was very interested how you
So
see
I
the.
lost you, Daniel. I had the picture in mind. I actually had a guest on my podcast who he's a life coach, and they built him an app that is him, kind of. The app models him. So his clients have access to him 24/7, but he still talks to his clients twice a week because it's not a complete substitute. Is that what you're speaking of, where you model it, put it
Something,
in
something
a?
like this, but you think is like we are doing more like a platform that we are building right now, where we have just here you can scroll to YouTube. You're gonna be able to create different agents of yourself with like different personas that represent the different consultants that you are. It's like for you, for
Yeah.
instance, like I might be more interested in learning how to think of the first principle thinking that you put in the community post, like the rocket scientist. But maybe I need adventurous advice from the mountain climbers. So it's like you have just like you have on YouTube, like a library, you also have like different
Mm-hmm.
parts of yourself, and you can follow different advisors. And one of the things why I wanted to connect you with Alex was because he had this idea of like, oh, interesting, the next generation of us maybe doesn't even have to worry about money anymore or sell their time, because it's like we've figured it out already, where we can have a more effective system of ourselves that solves problems for us and that allows us to do whatever we want to do. And I just want to ask you, what do you feel is the future of work in regards to this, and what would you
You
do?
know, what just came to mind is I'm old enough to remember when computers came out and they were supposed to make life easier, right?
Mm,
And I don't know about you, but I work just as many hours a week now in my business or in my music or whatever I'm doing as before. And yeah, there's a lot of easier things, but how come I don't, how, in a nutshell, we seem to always find more to do And why is that? How much more do we really need?
Do you feel that I heard Wozniak earlier on say like he really made a critique of the internet where it's like it was not intended to be this way, where it's so unintuitive and where everything costs. It's like for me, just I'm an internet entrepreneur, but I have so many subscriptions to pay. And it's like
Oh,
there's
the URLs. So I have 30 domain names. That is a racket. You talk about racket, like, okay, so every URL's, $20 a year or more. Uh, yeah, and the internet, yeah, let's not go down that dark hole. We're being fleeced.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. And also is if we continue to create more niche style monetizable solutions, there's also I feel like there's the image that I have to mind is like a very parasitical element where it's like there's like stuff hanging on to you from 100 different directions down the line in a way. And I just feel like could you see a new internet down the line that wouldn't be like that?
Oh, well, speaking of that, this is why I like doing my podcast or whatnot. I keep up to date. But I'm a little behind. Neurotechnology, where they're implanting brain cells onto silicon chips. So the
Oh, really?
potential future is, right, you would have a chip in your head, and then you wouldn't need a cell phone. You wouldn't need the internet. You wouldn't need the computer. There could be telepathy, communication, everything you need to know right there, right?
Would you do something like that?
I wouldn't. And I think there's pros and cons. So, in fact, I'm looking for a guest to have an episode on this to talk about this because the pros, of course, you see the disabled people who can now walk or even see, I think, and stuff like that because you can train the computer chip to move your arm depending on your thoughts and your brain activity. They basically they train they train the system to pay attention to your electrical activity, and when they figure out you're trying to move your arm but your arm can't move, for example, it's broken, the mechanism, mechanical system goes, oh, I'm supposed to move, and it trains it. On the downside, with the chip, I think you get the herd mentality,
Mm.
teamwork, collaboration, key buzzwords, which are okay, except that Steve Jobs was a maverick. Um, Edison was probably a maverick. The big inventors were not following herd mentality, teamwork, collaboration to push the big thing. You could get lazy with the team, just uh, because the AI right now will give you 20% of the time the wrong answer because it's based on what the popular answer is, not what the best and innovative answer is. So there are pros and cons to that, the future.
Mavericks.
Yeah,
What
Mavericks.
was like a moment of your life where you being a maverick caused you to be in some trouble with the rest of the world?
Well, I was always in trouble at my job to being a Maverick because, like I say, my model was uh, I'm I'm going to lunch for 3 hours, and during that time, I'm gonna go on a run. Nowadays, especially post-pandemic, where everyone works from home, you might not understand this, but not too long ago, you had to be back at work after lunch in an hour. You couldn't just decide I need some time alone to think, and I'm gonna go for a jog or something. That was considered maverick, and you'd get, some people would even lose their job for that. I would do it anyhow. But is that
If
answer?
you would write like a standard operating procedure for the next level of visionary so that they cannot give a fuck and be their authentic
Mm-hmm.
self, how would you write it? Because I feel like for me, what I wish somebody would have told me is that the most common reaction that I would get to the early beginnings of my career is I thought like everybody would cheer me on starting a company but actually I got like huge resistance. Friends like
I got the same thing on that on from your best friends too. The most negative feedback from your best friends.
amazing. It was wonderful, and it was like I just realized people want you to. There's just a strange relationship I feel because everybody has their belief system on how the world works,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like if you're a pioneer, Well, even if it's just different, like it's your nature programming or your decision that makes you to explore what's outside of that. And it's just a natural friction point where it's like they are feeling negative emotion because he's disturbing the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
my
Yep.
story in a way. And I didn't know that. And I was like feeling incredible. One of the reasons why I'm partnering with a
And
community.
but Daniel, what'll happen is when you're successful, or even if you're not, just the fact that you did it, if you notice, you will have inspired them to do things they previously were like, no, we can't do that. We can't do what Daniel's doing. We can't start a company. We can't do that. When they see you doing it, it's like climbing Mount Everest. First person that did it took 100 years and they thought it was impossible. Now everybody does it and it's not really anything special. But all those people, they were the naysayers. They're like, it can't be done. And now they go climb it. And uh, it's the same thing with anything. I knew an Indian woman who her thing was she just wanted to drive her car across the country by herself. And her family was like, "Oh, you can't do that." A woman in India too, mind you. So you got culture to deal with, right? So this is what I want to do. And then after she did it, everybody else is like, "What was that like? Where'd you stop?" And I want to do that. Like everybody wants to do it. So, but when you start, you get all this negative criticism, and it has nothing to do with your thing specifically. It is literally people in they're mirroring their own fears about themselves. They're not even talking to you. They're talking to themselves when they give you this criticism.
That's a good reminder. Oh wow, that's a good differentiator. Is the person giving advice to me, or are they defending their own way of
Yeah.
being?
Yeah.
The last weekend I was in Berlin. I had a wonderful time there with. Shout out to you, Ferdinand Biere. He's the CEO of Deep Metis. We potentially doing this marketplace I told you together in a way, and it's like one of the members of his team, Maurits, brilliant AI guy in a way. He shared the story. I never heard it. It was this study with monkeys where they put a ladder in the middle of the room, and there were monkeys around it. And the first time a monkey tried to climb the ladder, they had a water pistol with cold water, and they shot at everybody pretty much in a way. And then they would stop him from climbing the ladder. After some
Oh.
time, you remove the stimuli, and if somebody tried to climb the ladder, they would attack him, punch the monkey in a way. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
one of the advices I would like to have from you is like, how do you like we all that I think we're all one monkey or the other in regards to that experience somewhere down the line. What advice would you give to people who would currently trying to make time in spite of a
Yeah.
non-bring
If
environment?
I'm picturing myself being the monkey, I wouldn't let anybody know. I'd look around like when no one's looking, I'd move fast. I wouldn't want approval from them. I know I'm not getting it. I'm going to get beat up. I do it fast, and I would do it the mindset that once I'm gone, if they want to follow me, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I'm going. And of course, they will follow.
If you maybe I saved that question for a later point. Share a defining moment where you discovered a superpower within yourself. A superpower is like after your own definition in a way. It doesn't necessarily have to be something
Hmm.
transcendental in a way, but I feel like it's we all have, particularly
Well,
moving.
it's it's about the engineering. So you think an engineering's a smart guy, right? Um, I should be okay with that. But nobody, and maybe it's because of the musician persona too. So people don't take you, when you're younger anyhow, as serious. Um, I realized I was smart, but nobody ever told me I was smart. Nobody close to, like we spoke earlier about your close friends and family. And sometimes you just, like your superpower, you might not realize too much later on. And it may be what people never told you was a superpower. Like you might be expecting people to tell you, oh, you're really good at this, or, you're great at that. And you are. And you kind of think it, but no one ever tells you that. So that might be your superpower that people are never really telling you. And you kind of knew it all along. You just didn't acknowledge it because nobody else acknowledged it.
That really speaks from my heart. It's like when I got kicked off from my, I think third school, still remember the words of the principal. He said, Daniel, that head of yours is not good. You should maybe start doing something with your head. And it was like, and I had so much data that his thesis was correct, So I
Mm.
kind of believed him. And I feel like one of the things why I was maniacally obsessed with becoming an educational entrepreneur was because I felt I was really stupid and I really needed all the fucking
Mhm.
help in the world. And I feel like this idea of starting my own university, like having this intersection between education and artificial intelligence, this podcast, I think at some point I always felt like it's watch me, you dumb fuck, but also this idea
Yeah.
of like, maybe he's right. Maybe I need to do extra in a way. But then later on, I realized that
It's tricky because you wonder, am I right? Because you would like to have validation, external validation, and when you don't get it, you're almost second guessing yourself. That's why we said it's afterwards you realize your superpower.
yeah,
I'm reminded though in grade school, seventh, eighth grade, sixth, seventh grade, I would get like all D's or F's on my report card, and it would be just basically bad teachers, bad test, me not understanding what to do. I'm smart. Um, my mom, bless her heart, I took my report card hard. Report card home, and she just crossed out all the bad grades and wrote an A. I'm like, you can do that? Of course, it's grade school. It's not college, right? So yeah, take this back to your teacher. But I realized afterwards is just bad teachers and bad test, it's so forth and so forth. Nothing to do with how smart you are.
I 100%. And also it's you know, you can program and code. I studied the great programs of the mind in some sense. I've written so many books about psychotherapy and psychology and human nature. And when I got kicked out, I really studied, for instance, how the great leaders of the past were educated. And one of the things I discovered is that this concept of teachers actually fairly new, and it's a phenomenon of the poor. It's like when I looked at, for instance, how the son of state authority was educated like 600 years ago, who would turn out to run the country, they would have been specialists, like domain experts from all the country, all over the world, come in and teach these children at home over time. But there was like a belief established of like, you are the heir to the empire. So it's like there was a path already predefined, and they didn't have babysitters like eight teachers who knew six subjects, for instance, who would come in at such an early age and help them to move through. But it was quite the opposite in a way. And I feel everything that I've had great teachers in a way, but it was almost by accident that I found them in the educational system in a way. And I feel like it's really good to put in asterisks behind people you meet in an industrial complex in a way, because by them being there, they don't have the time to actually become like a luminary in their own regards. So it's like nobody told you that your resistance to taking advice from somebody who isn't quite there actually might be a good thing, that you have this Socratic impulse about yourself of not just following just anybody. And it's like I feel you can also get punished out of the good behaviors in school too. Yeah, it's a random side note. Who was, when you think of mentorship, who's the person that comes to mind for you?
Well, what does mentorship really mean? Whenever I think of mentorship, I think of something official, semi-rigid, like formal, more than, casual or not even acknowledging, hey, you were my mentor. I didn't know what a mentor was, but you're my mentor. Which one are we speaking of?
Well, I think one of the things you just described, that's it's when I studied psychotherapy, I noticed that the greatest therapists became invisible. And it was a big thing for Freud, for instance. He liked
Hmm.
it. And Freud was a great psychotherapist. It's like he was wrong
Yeah,
about things, but what a psychological pioneer he was. It's like all that's left is his mistakes. All the other things we just take for granted he discovered. And he
yeah.
stood behind his clients because he would like guide them through their own exploration, but he wanted to make sure he's not even in the room for them. And I feel like
Yeah.
great mentorship sometimes is like that too, where it's like that.
Well, so in engineering, I definitely had a mentor, a boss or two. In songwriting, I was kind of out on my own, but I did spend some time with Donovan Leitch.
Who's
I
he?
consider he is from the 60s, the time of the Beatles. He hung out with the Beatles. He's really big over in Europe. That's where he's from, Scotland. but he's kind of old now. He's 70 now. But I met him about 10 years ago, and he kind of taught me a bunch of stuff, kind of like he did taught the Beatles stuff. Good mentor, kind, gentle soul, passing on the knowledge. I think mentors, though, for me, have been in each area. Not one mentor for all like the songwriting, music, engineering, climbing. Not one mentor for that, but micro mentors in each area, possibly.
If you would pick like five people as your board of advisory for people from your past who had a great impact, the dead or alive, who would you pick? Who do you feel like were some of the influencers that created this
Well, you know what's interesting about
vicinity
that is
right now?
when I go back and talk to some of these individual mentors, I'm like really fascinated by how they don't see the bigger picture. They're really experts and mentors in one area, and they have their own passions, but in a way, they're living in a small world, not as big. So if I pick five people, and it would be like an engineering mentor and a music mentor, and then my board, it seems like they would all learn more working together than I would. Like you guys all get together. I've used all you guys. Now, maybe you guys still use each other. Um, which, comes to mind maybe possibly a good thing for people is to have mentors in more than one area of their life.
It's one of the things I'm fascinated, which I'm learning right now. Is like one of the features we are building is the platform is going to have a board of advisors set up where you can consult multiple agents at the same time. And it's like I hope the same thing will be true for the in-person meets down the line. I find it so interesting just to observe different luminaries from different sectors who just share
Mhm.
their opinion because sometimes going back to the monkeys thing, it's like one of your challenges might not be even considered a challenge for somebody from a different domain than yours. And I just love it where it's like every belief is almost like a personal prison at sometimes that doesn't necessarily apply to another person. So I just love how different
Yeah,
individuals.
you can break through barriers innovate with innovation by having we'll give you an example of rock climbing. Not a mentor, but a climbing partner of mine was an artist, and he only liked to climb by himself, but he liked to climb stuff that had never been climbed before. Which I'm like, well, how are you going to climb stuff that's never been climbed if you don't learn how to climb the way you're supposed to climb? But he would read books and he would make his own equipment, his own climbing equipment. He was the strangest guy ever. We climbed some of the hardest stuff that didn't get repeated for 20 years by better climbers because it was the merging of the engineer with the artist, the guy who had the logical plan with the guy who's just wanted to do his own thing, be creative. So when you bring the most diverse people together that you think you're crazy and don't know what you're doing, yeah, you're too rigid or you think you're too smart. When you bring groups of people together that just don't seem like they belong together, it's kind of like baking food, I guess, where you didn't know. Well, if I add this spice to it, or if I add the peanut butter to it, or the banana, or whatever, God, who would have thought? You come up with that stuff versus when you just stick with the keep everything separate.
You know, that's so beautiful and also opened me up to a wonderful future where we can bring different cooks together who all have their special procedures and ingredients and then maybe just get out of the way and see some unimaginable innovations and see out of them.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me, what is it with the rock climbing and going where no one has gone before? Because that's like something that feels like that's quite unique about you in a way, where it's like
Yeah. So, and I'm very lucky to have had that opportunity, and because it's pretty much over with now in this world. This was the last 30 years of my climbing when there weren't that many people climbing. It wasn't because I had to be first, by the way. I know famous climbers. I and I watch a YouTube for 10 minutes and they talk about I just want to be first. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. I mean, it has to do with adventure. And mind you, I did climb a lot of stuff and learned how to climb, climbed everything that had been climbed first, kind of. But it's adventure. I like the adventure, the challenge, following, making your own road, so to speak. Uh,
Mm.
the adventure.
Do you still remember the first one moment that stands out that was particularly meaningful to you when you were on one of the summits?
They're all good. And I just like being out there. So it's all good. It's a very spiritual thing, the climbing.
Yeah. One of the things would be cool actually is one of the things I dream of is like fusing the intellectual world with the physical world in a way. It would be actually quite cool to the places where you've climbed in to have a little artifact of yours where you can get a particular message or like a distinct agent of yourself where I can have a little conversation with you. It's just like, but it's only be able to
Yeah.
unlock this. It's like that's one of the things I hope the app will have, like almost Pokemon Go with agents, where it's like you need to go to that summit to get that next message or something. That would be very beautiful.
You're reminding me of a science fiction movie where, they go into space and they discover an artifact from an ancient civilization that was there long before. And it's, a 3D holographic story of their life that's no longer there, something like that. And it's kind of interesting to see who was there before you.
Yeah, that's the dream that I have. It's like I'm very fascinated by the idea of Dead Sea Scrolls and the idea of like leaving a legacy in an interactive manner behind, but also under the umbrella of sparking adventure. It's like one of my favorite TV shows is One Piece. Have you watched it, the anime?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's great, guys. It's great, guys. But it's a pirate series, and there's like this great king who was the king of the pirates, and he got like killed pretty much. Like, and when they execute him, the last thing he has this big mustache and a smile. It's like I left my big treasure on the Grand Line. Like, it's like for you to find it, and that sparks a great age of pirates who want to go that finding the One Piece, which is like a treasure pretty much that would change the world. I think the idea of like leaving something behind that will spark that spirit of
You know
humanity.
that I'm just thinking about this now. Why is adventure so important? And we can all have adventures. We don't have to climb stuff that's never been climbed. I think maybe it's because we're talking about using your intuition and you get into this state where you have to follow your intuition. You have to do that more on something that's never been climbed because you don't know the roadmap. Versus, imagine I'm going to go climb El Capitan and it's super hard and I picked the hardest route. That's not adventure, it's fear. I'm getting over my fear. I'm like, I know I can do this. This next part's hard. I'm looking at the map. It's really hard. I think I have the gear for it. I can do it. And it's a challenge and it's fear, so it's rewarding. But it's a different kind of reward because it's not as much blindly following your intuition because I don't know where I'm going. That's the adventure. You're getting feedback with your internal intuition and higher power and whatnot that you can't quite get when you do something that is on the map. Then it's just do I have the equipment? Do I have the time? Can I get over my fear? It's a different mindset.
It's also, do you believe that maybe this says about who we are at the core as a species? Because I find it utterly romantic that like if giving the chance, there's just like comfort means almost nothing to us. Where it's like there's this part of us where we leave the cave behind and like we just say we need to map this jungle in front of us. It's like there's dangerous things in front of it, but there's
Hmm.
also like we need to.
Well, what comes to mind, Daniel, uh, because I'm thinking, what's wrong with not staying in the cave, but say we were in a civilization, we didn't need TV, we had plenty of food. Maybe I farm in the day, but the weather's always perfect. We have this technology that keeps everything peaceful, gives us food. We don't need to work all the time. We don't need to be in school all the time. We have enough knowledge. Why not just hang out and talk to each other and just enjoy life? I would be fine with that. Um,
Are you
what
sure?
I'm, well, one thing I'm just remembering, and I remember the Polish in terms of climbing K2 in the Himalayas. When I was young, getting into climbing, I'd read magazines. The Polish, for some reason, I'm sure there's lots of people like this. How do you guys go to the Himalayas and you just have a party? Like you just enjoy it. Like it's well, like at home, it's very hard. Our life is very hard. It's lots of suffering. We have more food on the mountain than we have on our table at home sometimes. Our work conditions are as horrible as, the mountain's great. We love being out here. So it's an escape, I think. Getting out of the cave is not just an adventure. I think we're escaping something, I think, that's bad instead of staying there and making it good. And then maybe if it was all good and wonderful, we wouldn't feel the urge to leave.
Yeah, it's one of the mysterious urges we have as humans.
Hmm.
The chronic inability to enjoy perfect circumstances.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. People are afraid to be happy, afraid to be happy.
And maybe there's a good thing that this is the case too, because it's like there's an entire cosmos that needs to be explored. And I feel like needs to be a little bit of a balance, ideally between us. But I think it's one of the most romantic aspects of our species, where it's like we're fucking crazy monkeys, where it's like there's an unclimbed mountain. It's like some rock star like you says, I can climb that motherfucker. It's like that's something beautiful, I think, about who we are. Um, what was an initiation moment for you from going from boy to man? And what are your definitions of it? It's like one of the things that I'm also interested in right now is like creating this archive is to preserve rituals, but also like explore like these different concepts and transitory.
Yeah, well, I had an older brother, and he was firstborn. I'm the middle child, so it's kind of like who gets taught how to drive the car first, who gets taught how to shave first, who gets taught about girls first, and then yeah, tell your younger brother. Um, and you didn't tell me. So I had to find my own way. I'm not really sure, puberty, transition into manhood. I think for a lot of people, I'm just going to guess it would be fatherhood, but I don't have any children, so I can't use that for an example. Actually, Daniel, I think I'm still a child psychologically, um, because I'd like to explore still and play and then not think about, retirement and things so rigid on the like my 401k and everything else. Like people have their life planned out. I'm like, well, you don't know when you're gonna die. And why would you want to plan for that anyhow? Is there something else you should be doing? So maybe if you give me an example, I can go, yeah, I get that, and I'll come up with, I'll be able to answer your question better.
I was very blessed. That was a beautiful question, by the way. It's just
Hmm.
like none of my questions are like intended to
Hmm.
lead somewhere. It's
Okay.
more like prompts and then just me watching what happens between the conversation between us in a way, like an
Hmm.
adventure on a conversation basis. But one of the things that I was interested in is when I grew up right before smartphones happened, right
Hmm.
before. And it was one of the things we did. We would have these little youth gangs in a way, and we would design challenges for each other. It's like, for instance, there was this forest, and it was like we abandoned buildings, and some of us, the crazy ones of us, said like, who's going to sleep there one night to battle with the ghosts and all these stupid
Yeah.
things, or it's like having like fights with other neighborhoods or something like this. And I feel that I was blessed with a very old environment, even though we were all poor like shit, but it was like this idea of like being rich and having actually like a very traditional social setting for boys to do stupid boys adventurous stuff to grow naturally in a way. And I was wondering for you, what is an initiation moment for you that you feel like you realize, oh Jesus Christ, I'm a man now. Or it's like, did
Well,
that
when you mention the what you just did, what comes to mind, I've forgotten about. Grew up in Cleveland. The name was Stih. People used to make fun of us, Pig Stih. And my brother was a troublemaker. We were always in trouble. I was always getting beat up. I've been bullied and assaulted and beat up more times than I can recall. It's quite tragic and traumatic. There's this buzzword trauma, and I don't understand. I'm like, aren't we all traumatized somehow? Didn't we all get beat up or bullied or something? And I don't know why some people think they're special now. It's a global problem. At least, anywho, I had that in my past, and that's what comes to mind when you just described doing stuff sneakier that you could get in trouble for. Yeah, one time we found the old gang members hangout, me and my older brother, and I don't remember what we did to kind of destroy it or mess it up. But he had me on the watch out. He's like, if the, watch from coming, and I'm going to be doing this, and then let me know if they're coming. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, because they've been mean to us. They beat us up. Okay, fine, that kind of thing.
Important, but you just touched on something important where you feel um I think there's a great corruption in the psychotic system. It's like everybody thinking it's traumatized, and people take that trauma as a victim card and get
Yes, they own it. They
they own it.
become
And it's
they.
like, and it's like that's like if you have it, it's like, for instance, technically, and I've written books about trauma, and I was blessed to I interviewed Dr. Paul Conti, who was maybe the world expert in this, and it's like technically trauma from a narrative perspective is an unfinished story. So it's like something awful happened in your childhood, and this emotional entity within your brain is gonna haunt you until you figured out what happened, how to protect yourself from the future, until you made a new map for the world and
Mhm.
yourself and other people. But it's not something that should be within you 12 months after. It doesn't mean that life shouldn't be harmful, but
Yeah, yeah, it'd be like cancer. If you go to get cured from cancer, you're not going to keep saying I have cancer or I am cancer. You're going to get healed. You're going to get well again.
yeah, and it's like that's something where I think that one of the great trends in that there is the healthcare system in America is under attack right now from like revealing its corruption. I think next is the mental health system because they have such a shallow understanding of the psyche where you will see what kind of damage they did over the last years. And it's like they always like use almost like labeling techniques to bind an identity to a pathology, which prevents the individual from proceeding forward with their adventure. It's like
Yeah,
you're a borderliner, you have ADHD, you are a trauma survivor, you're a trauma bonder, whatever these kind of shits are. And
yeah.
the moment somebody talks like that, they're pathing out a story for you in the future that is affecting how you experience
The
reality.
ADHD is a good example because, and I know for all I know, I have some ADHD. See, I don't want to know. I don't even know how old I am. If people ask how old I am, I could go, it's private, but I'll share what year I was born. Because what are they asking me? My age. You're gonna start putting me in the same hole, right, Daniel? Like, how old are young? Like, based on the number.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just,
want.
but that's such a healthy resistance, and it's like for energy, for instance, it's like one of the things that was so fascinating and learning was like how your brain, how you're the kind of guys like you feel like you're working, and but you're dreaming about the mountain, and there's like this assumption that there is knowledge and wisdom and benefits to your to dreams coming to you in a way, and the idea of what they are doing right now is there's $1 billion industry that is prescribing medicaments to people like that and to numb those kind of
Mm.
things to
You mean
stick.
like the anxiety and antidepressant drugs and other like
It's
mental drugs?
it's a huge thing. It's like, for instance, where my friend, shout out to you, Jeff, like when he was in school, he was his nature was like he's one of the most gifted athletes I ever met. He's like Jesus Christ. He looks like he can run in the Olympics, and he was a professional athlete. For him, like sitting 8 hours listening to some shit he's not interested in, it's like super normal that he were like thinking about someone else. He was thinking about like, I don't know, like running or getting a girl or getting into a fight. It was like
He was
following like,
daydreaming. Daydreaming is what they call it in
yeah, and
class.
it's normal in a way. It's like the idea of like maybe if you have to drug healthy adults into sitting still, maybe it's not the individual that's sick, but maybe the environment is a little bit corrupted in a way. And I feel like that's the same thing for all the pathologies right now.
I used to daydream and fall asleep in class so much it was ridiculous. Um, I opened my eyes to see the teacher just standing quietly looking at me, standing next to my desk looking at me, waiting for me to come back to it. He's like, and I when I did, I'm like, what's going on here? He's like, yeah, Daniel, what's going on? I I was really good at
They
that.
used to, one of the reasons why I got like in many fights was like they made fun of me and they like
Hmm.
threw paper balls in my head in a way. And when I was dreaming, because I was like every time I hear
Hmm.
something inspiring, my brain goes on like 15-minute journeys, and I'm like, I'm not really in the classroom anymore. It's like, and
Yeah.
it happens
Which,
like,
you know, what comes to mind about this when we're talking about this is how broken our education system is. Because you're probably having good ideas, you had to follow them, and there was no setting to take what you were thinking and do something with it. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud right now, but what comes to mind is, what if they had asked us, Daniel, what are you thinking? Oh, or your friend who's an athlete. I'm thinking about breaking the 1 mile record speed. Um, you think you could do it now? Maybe you should go to the track and then come back when your mind is clear and you're like, I did it or I couldn't do it. Then I could focus, like we've been talking about the Renaissance mind, Da Vinci kind of strategy. Then I can focus on algebra, trigonometry, whatever I'm supposed to be here for. But right now I can't because my mind's there and maybe I'm supposed to be there.
it's I had you're so right, and it's like there's something fundamentally strong with the myth of modern education system, because it's like, I think Germans are to blame. Like, we are
Hmm.
usually to blame for most things in the world. Like, we're the originators of all sorts of trouble. But it's like, if you look at it, it's a relic of the Preussian system. It's like, it's it's if you look at how schools look, it's actually very similar to industrial buildings, or something like this, in a way, where it's like, you have this factory worker kind of style with the bells and the,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
way. It's a We need to have a complete renaissance for this, or
They're homogenizing us, is what they're doing, making
yeah,
us all the same. Yeah.
yeah, they homogenize us, but it's like the problem is like,
And
if
then ironically, they talk about innovation all the time and they want to encourage innovation. I'm like, no, you don't. Because if you really did, no, you don't. You don't really want to do.
you're so right. I feel like one of the things that also is a nexus moment for innovation is encounters with extreme life situations, in a way. What was for you an encounter with death, malevolence, or adversity that you feel made you wiser as a human being and changed your outlook on the world, or even yourself?
Well, my latest death story, there's more than one. I mean, you could pick a car crash that I lived through, but we talk about mountain climbing. For 2 years, I couldn't even tell the story because I thought people would think I'm an idiot and never climb with me. The rookie mistake, I almost rappelled off the end of my rope. And what saved me was
What does it mean, if for somebody who's not a rock climber yet?
a basal. In your part of the world will be a basal. I'm on the mountain, and to get down, I have to come down my rope, slide down my rope. And there's a device that connects between my harness and my rope to keep me on the rope as I slide down. And some people don't realize they're coming to the end of the rope and they just slide off. They're not paying attention. So I
Oh,
have something I put on my rope just in case I'm not paying attention that will stop me. In this case, I'm by myself and I'm looking up to see what's my rope is hung up on, and looking for the way down and everything, not paying attention to where my hand is on the rope that's sliding, and it won't move, so I can't go down any further. And I'm getting angry and frustrated. I finally look down, and it's because my hand is at the end of the rope. And the thing that's supposed to stop me from pushing my hand off the rope, it is stuck on the sticker that the manufacturer puts on the end of the rope. The little plastic piece of sticker, that's what it's stuck on. And if I pull hard enough, it should have come off, and it didn't, as well as a couple other things that
wow. So there
had,
was an industrial sticker on the rope, and if that would have gone off, you would have fallen.
yeah, and a couple other things that, like acts of God, basically, or higher power, just a multitude of things had to happen. And instead of being traumatic, I was just like, wow, I'm not dead. I'm supposed to still be here. Uh, and then what are those three things? They were really simple things that came to mind, like which
What do you make of that?
that I'm supposed to still be here. Uh, I don't know how it all works. I don't have a religion per se. I just know that for me, enough times I should have died that I didn't. That no matter what life throws at me, I'm kind of like there's a positive intention behind this that has to be bigger than you, and that's it.
Hmm.
What about you, Daniel?
Well, first of all, I've been touched by your story.
Yeah.
You say it's like, I really like you. It's like the idea of going back in the past. It's like it's been to the degree where there's a sticker behind I would have never met you is kind of crazy. I feel like if you really look back at how fragile life is and in some
Mm-hmm.
sense, and it's like how protected we are in some scenes, it's like I spent most of my 20s being a ravaging idiot traveling around the world and getting myself into every possible trouble I could get to feel myself and to feel alive. And it's like it's the fact that I never die is like almost very strange. I can only concur with what you said. It's like it seems to me that reality itself has a personality and that there's a core authoring happening. And it's like
Yeah.
maybe you're not supposed to go away until your job is done, so to say. You're not relieved of your duty yet. I feel the same way.
Something like that. I don't know. And then I'm also really the people that die young and tragically, I'm just like, I don't get that part either. Like I just can't wrap my head around that. Like, when somebody dies out of the blue for, car crash or an illness, a cancer that comes on sudden, next thing you know, I'm like, I don't get that. That part I have a harder time understanding.
Yeah, there's a great story I can recommend for. Do you have you read the book of Job from the Bible?
If I did, it was a long time ago when I grew
It's
up
a very
Catholic.
beautiful story. It's there's this guy Job, and he does really well in life, and pretty much the devil and God have a conversation about him, and like God like praises Job and say, look at this guy, like he's so cool and he does everything right, and pretty much the devil says, yeah, but only because he's getting compensated for the virtue he's embodying, and said like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, if you take away the comfort of his life, he will corrupt eventually to become a bad person. And like in this story, they make the bet, say, I'm gonna show you you are wrong, and then they put down one illness on top of each other of that guy. Woman leaves him, he gets sick, all his friends make fun of him. It's just like this, all
Hmm.
his children die, like his cows perish, and it's like until he pretty much like says it would be maybe better if I wouldn't exist because this is too much to me. And then they have a conversation, and God takes Job on this journey to show him the infinite size of the cosmos and how it's very hard if you just have a limited window to reality to make sense of it all. And I think it's one of the most beautiful stories that answers questions like that, where it's just like some things are better not to be questions. Like I guess in a way where you just have to have a sense of faith almost in a way. It's like or at least the ability to endure that you don't have all the answers to move forward in life, because that's a crossroad where many people break, I think. It's like that's where
Yeah,
people.
or the what came to mind is because we're talking about go where we're talking about go climbing, go work, go do this. What if this is this hypothetical? In the higher spirit, there's some higher spiritual plane where our life here is just like going climbing or doing music or doing engineering. And these people that die young or old, but just out of the blue, their spirits going, you know what? Time to go do this instead. But I had so much more to do here. It's all good. It's just you'll come back, you'll go somewhere else. I don't know, Daniel, but it's a positive idea that came to my mind for
Yeah,
the
but I
tragedies.
feel like the connection makes so much sense because it's just like a I don't know, like a pioneer like you who listens to the muse and actually goes there. There's no rationale really behind it. And that makes
Hmm.
immediate sense where you can present numbers in a pitch deck to, I don't know, the CEO of the world, and he would say, oh, it makes sense that you go for 3 weeks away from rock to go rock climbing. It's this assumption that there's a hidden logic that is not perfectly available to us. And I feel like reminding ourselves in times of darkness can be very useful. where it's like, I feel like a good captain can be measured by his ability to endure the fog of the unknown. And it's like you don't need to have all the answers. You can still move into the right direction. And I feel that's a good litmus test to see like how properly you are connected with your feet on the ground and your head in the sky, if that makes any sense at all. Anyway, to not blabber too much. First love, what is your encounter with love or your relationship with it? I feel that's also like
Yeah.
such a nexus event in a way. What was your
Well, there's romantic love, and then there's, just people love.
spoken like a true engineer? I love it. Tell me more.
Yeah. In romantic love, I actually have a book. I wrote a book on romantic love. It's
I saw
called,
that. I was like, I love that you didn't let yourself be categorized in one niche because I wrote
well, the,
books about relationships and it's like people always ask me, why the fuck do these books even exist? You're like, and I was like,
well, so it's again like you maybe, people think I'm brilliant. I know nothing. And I'm just like songwriting, knew nothing, didn't know how to write a song, go figure it out. Romance, I'm in a band and I don't know how to ask a girl out on the date. I'm an engineer, a smart guy, and I think I need to be in a band before a girl will like me. Stupid stuff like that. And so I was the kind of point where, okay, I'm going to lock down on this the next 2 years. And I'm going to not just read the books, I'm going to do the experiments. I'm going to go out and meet people, learn how to talk to people, learn how to not just ask them out on a date, but do the other creative things to make romance fun and interesting and exciting and not just to have sex, mind you. Uh, I took that stuff out of the book. I ran into that in the course of doing this, of course, also. I'd run into players and people, and I was almost one of them where, okay, it's really disparaging in terms of, they're men who just want to go pick up women for sex. And I could do that if I could. I didn't put any of that in my book is where I'm going because I want my book to be for people who they are, they know who they are. They're smart people or creative people. They're not just wanting sex, but they don't know how to talk to people and have social skills. There's so much misinformation about dating and pickup on the internet. It's ridiculous. Uh, most of it, you know, most of it.
so
Yeah. So
much.
anyway, where were we?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a,
love,
so
love.
why did you
What
write a
love?
why did you write a book on dating?
Oh, love.
Uh,
So comes to mind after all this, um, and the question you're asking, like, what, how do you know? Um, I've come to conclude, love is that simple. And those who are happily married or happily in a relationship and romantically will tell you the same thing. You just know. And it's just that easy. On the people side, one of my I'd like to talk to strangers in general. I think the whole world would be happier if you see somebody you wait in line for coffee or looks like they need someone to talk to, just hi. I'm Daniel. Hi. That's simple. um, don't overthink it. That kind of love, people love, I think would help the world a lot. You see someone sitting by themselves, just say hello.
was there ever a time where this humanist philosophy wasn't installed within you or was on the brink of fading?
Yeah, it's like when you're a teenager, a kid trying to figure out how to get your first kiss, how to get the girl, and you don't understand any of this because nobody explained it to you before. So yeah, there was that time, and you're just trying to think of how am I going to get a kiss from, not how am I going to talk to a stranger because, love is all we need, as the Beatles would say, makes the world go around, makes everything happier.
Do you sometimes feel Freud was right and it's like all our creative endeavors are just an answer to the question, how do I get a kiss?
I think more the people love the the idea, honestly, like when we're talking about why did we leave the cave? If you truly felt loved in the cave, I don't think you would ever leave. Um, More the true love, which really it's money that's big part of that problem, the whole monetary system, It's not how much love you can give or receive, it's how much money.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, as a society, money is trapping us. I don't want to take us too far in that rabbit hole, but
No, actually,
c-
this perfectly thinks because one of the like I'm like a big part of what we are doing technically, the archive of personalities we are creating is I was traveling the world for 3 years on trying to get the team, the people, but also the business case together on because I had to figure out an answer to the question, how do I incentivize individuals to preserve their legacy on this platform? Because they're busy, right? It's like, and actually the question in the end was the answer that we came down to is we help luminaries with the monetization, with the preservation, protection, and profitization of their intellectual knowledge, pretty much in a way. And it's like what I hope down the line that this can equip people with, and it's this idea that they don't have to worry about it. And I'm very curious what societal changes will ensue if maybe we don't have to do that anymore? What adventures would we take? What would we write? Like what would we not longer do? And maybe we would find new mountains that are unclimbed to go to. And I
well,
feel like
kind of like that first principle article I posted, what's the problem solution?
I
The
love this
problem would,
article. Thanks so much for posting that. Like, and that, by the way, means a lot.
yeah,
Like people who don't know, this is how I also determine my friends. It's I opened up the community for the company like I think like 7 days ago, and I have a special place in my heart. Who, when a friend does a stupid party and they show up anyway and dance around with them until the club is fully full in a way. So it's like that was a great post of yours. So tell us, please, like
oh,
the idea of
thanks.
first principle thinking and what the idea was behind it and
Well,
how to think of
I
the rocket
actually
science.
just discovered that term a month ago because, I don't know how I think, but people have labels for this. So I can't really define first principle except to say that it's like breaking the problem down. We're speaking of money and how good the world would be in the future if we had, things are better. When you break the problem down today, though, with innovation, money's in the equation. In other words, as part of the solution to the problem, the solution has to include making money, meaning the problem, we don't have money. As long as that's part of the plan, you're going to be limited by what a society we could do because we're competing with each other. We're not collaborating on. It's kind of like when the pandemic happened and we are looking for a vaccine. We had two companies competing, and part of that's good because you think, oh, I come up with innovative ideas because I'm competing, and no, part of it's not because each of your ideas is mostly proprietary, intellectual property. You're not sharing it. It wasn't shared with the public. You're not sharing it amongst yourself. We could have come up with a solution faster if it wasn't for the money. And it's justified because those companies were putting a lot of money into their research. They needed to get paid back money. So it's conflict of interest with the innovation.
If you would, based on first principle thinking, if you would write or if you would give a leadership masterclass on how to think like a rocket scientist, and you will write us a standard operating procedure, how will you define, what do you think is the process that you go from problem to execution?
Well, the way I always work is what are we trying to do? And what's stopping us? But I'm a maverick. So quite often I just go, okay, I'm going to lunch now because you got my answer. The other 90% of the people in the office, they're worried about their job and their money. I should be too, but I'm just like, I gave you a solution because of course it won't be one that maybe be optimal for other conflicting factors in the company. Like maybe, well, that's just not the boss's favorite idea. Why? Well, it just isn't. Well, you didn't put that into my first principle thinking. I don't even know what his problem is with the problem. Like, why doesn't he like it? You're convoluting it again. So my thinking is simply, what are we trying to do first? Then let's figure out what's stopping us. Not just from the beginning put down all the we can't do this because of that. We can't do this because of that. all these conflicts. We'll come back to them, I mean, that's life, but not first, not with the first principle thinking. What's the
Elon Musk
problem?
was able
Yeah.
to actually quite interesting in a way, like where a lot of people, at least this is the online narrative, told him to not go into the rocket industry pretty much in a way. And he's like, there was a famous joke he told that people told him, it's like, how do you make $1 million in the rocket industry? He said like you start with two,
Or
pretty much.
tickets. You sell tickets before you even build a rocket. That's the answer to that one. They sold tickets before they even had a space program.
Oh, really? They
Yeah.
have? Oh, that's so creative. I didn't know
Oh
that
yeah, I
yet.
think back in the day before they even really they started the company. I don't remember which one it was, and it was one of Richard who's the billionaire, the English billionaire Richard he has a space program.
Richard, what? Yeah, from Virgin. What the fuck's his
Yeah,
name?
Virgin. I believe he just started selling tickets for like 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million. And there was no design even for any ship, I think. It was just the idea, I can build one. I have the money. I'm going to. Do you want to get on the waiting list? Boom. He's a good sales guy.
Interesting. Yeah, um yeah, interesting. We're doing something similar right now in a way where it's like one of the things I was interested in is like a good way to test if you have a case is like if you can get people to get incentivized and they vote with their wallet and then you
Hmm.
vote that way. That's actually quite interesting way to go about it.
Yeah,
Um
except real quick, because I always get almost stuck in that trap of thinking too. Like let's drip, like let's drip the course or drip the technology, meaning put our feet in the water and if people buy, we'll develop more. But then I come back to Steve Jobs, who developed all the stuff, but like the iPod. Do you know what the iPod is? And the iMac, what's the screen? The computer. It's not even doesn't have a keyboard. I don't have an iPad. The iPad. Nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted it. Nobody knew what to do with it. He made it anyhow.
yeah, that's what I mean where I'm like I don't know. It's I guess like to some degree you're not a real artist if you are thinking like a salesperson in a way. Because I think like you are like an artist or like a true pioneer or visionary.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
there's ideas that come to him. For instance, Tesla was very famous for, and I was blessed to work with true pioneers. Shout out to my last business partner, Adrian. One of my last business partners, I met him first at 2 o'clock in the co-working space in Indonesia and Bali. He was just like looking in the ceiling, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing there? It's like you crazy or something?" And he told me, "No, I had this idea of reconfiguring the design in my mind." He was just putting stuff together in a way. And it was just it wasn't like a direct transfer between what one person needs and what he has. He was fully fledged blueprints would present themselves to him, and then he could pretty much decide if he want to like build it. But it was already ready, and I think that great artists sometimes they can see what the sculpture looks like before they look at the marble. How is that
Hmm.
for
I kind of have the same idea, like we're talking about daydreaming. I get ideas all the time, and I can't stop thinking about them, like you're saying. And then maybe I'll go, you know what? Maybe I should develop this, and maybe I can make some money off of it. Maybe I can't. But it all starts with what you're getting at is the creative idea comes into your head, and you didn't really ask for it thinking I want to solve a problem, especially thinking, can I make money on it? That wasn't the start. You just got these ideas.
you? Yeah, no, very, very interesting. And it's like, I guess like one of the reasons why I don't like pre-sales that much is because it's if the I'm in Hamburg. Hamburg is a beautiful city. I will
Mm.
go to the mountain to you once, and one time you need to visit me in my hometown. It's full of cathedrals, and it's like some of these cathedrals, they took like 300 years to finish. It's like, what kind of visionary capabilities our ancestors had, where you like, it's not just that you are not gonna see product launch, but it's like your son needs to work on this shit too, and his son too. And it's like this idea of like long-term thinking, and where it's like, if it's important enough and beautiful enough, it's like, why the rush? It's like, and I
Hmm.
like this idea, and I feel like sometimes it reminds me of a very, we can lose quality and magic if we only focus on the transactional aspect of creation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, First business. I feel that's a big part always of an entrepreneur. What was the first time you
Well,
got
my first business, actually, I'm going to tell you my first two businesses.
started?
Uh, well, one of my first businesses was after I left engineering and I didn't know what I was going to do. My landlord saw me fixing up the apartment to my place, and he's like, "You're handy. Do you want a job fixing stuff up?" So before I knew it, because I'm really a go-getter, I had a big truck and I'm a contractor doing everything you can possibly imagine in terms of buildings. Um, my other business, which is ironic, the way computers work, they're so archaic, these systems that keep track of our credit scores. But because it's a company, it shows up on my credit score first. I'm like, what? Um, I had candy machines, vending machines. The idea being, where can you make money easy, not do too much work? Well, you can have vending machines or you can have a laundromat. Those are the two, like just let them sit there and make money. And of course, I'm also the healthy living guy, so it makes no sense I'm selling candy bars, but that was my logical mind going, how can I make, guaranteed easy income? And I unloaded those because, there was no passion in that, but technically those are two of my first businesses.
Do you learn from them?
You shouldn't, two things. One, candy machines don't follow the money. I mean, if you got that much money, you know, you're lucky, right? Um, But yeah, we don't feel lucky. Like there's never enough money. Go find something else just save your money. Don't worry about I have to do something with my money. Uh, find out what your real purpose is. So with the building construction, that was interesting work, mind you, and I didn't even need a job. But what happened is I found myself working in this company full time. Like, what am I doing? I'm an engineer, first of all. Now I'm building houses. And yeah, it was okay for a little while. It's kind of interesting. I learned a lot. I mean, but this is not what I want to do. This is not who I am. Why am I here? Just for the money again. Quit because you'll get stuck there. Try to avoid getting in those things in the first place. I fell into it because he asked me. I didn't know it would lead to that because that's, go like, okay, well, the phone kept ringing and everyone would call me. Um, which again is not a bad place to be in when the phone's always ringing. You can charge what you want, but it can be a distraction from what you really want to do or what you're really supposed to be, what you're here for to do.
Yeah. I think like one of the things I would like to ask you is like one of the great blessings of my career was that I was really unattractive for the corporate space during my early entrepreneurial career when I started. I was like, I was really good at dreaming and pushing things into existence, but I wanted to write books and create products. But it's like my salesmanship or marketing or any of those things wasn't fully developed that I got like that offer that an engineer would potentially get where it's like, oh, amazing, he can solve this problem. So I was blessed with 5 years of uninterrupted space to actually like start thinking like an entrepreneur and build stuff and experiment and have my first failures and all that kind of stuff. How did you resist the urge to follow the money and just be like one of those American developers who makes a lot of money but abdicates the idea?
It's easy, man. It's piece of pie. It's the same reason I left engineering. One day I just like, okay, if I was here the rest of my life and this is what I did, where would I live? What would be my lifestyle? 9 to 5, making fine money. There's something else I am here to do or that I'm gonna do. And I won't do it if I stay here. It's that black and white feeling, like we're talking about love. How do you know when that person is the person? You just know. And if you don't know, and if you know, and and then you need to go. If you stay there, then you're going to be unhappy no matter how many millions or billions of dollars you make.
Was it hard for people around you to understand you by having this unique
Oh
mind?
yeah, people would try to talk you out of it. My engineering managers thought I was going to work for a competitor. They like to the day like I was leaving, like they were just so sure like I was going to work for a competitor and that you just wouldn't leave without a plan. What are you going to do next? It's that simple. Like time is running out, life is short. We got to go, man. We got to go. This is good. This has been good. We got to go. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm not encouraging people to jump off a bridge, mind you. In that kind of sense, like people think, well, I need change in life. I'm just going to quit. I don't mean to haphazardly, randomly quit because you're unhappy. You could be unhappy and be the place you're supposed to be, just have a bad boss, a bad environment. But when you really know that's not it, then you're either just there for the money, you are there just for the money. You need to go find something else. You need to go find it. You know what it is.
How would you give advice to somebody who's about to just go and like how do you what would you tell to somebody who's in that situation and they maybe haven't discovered their purpose or even like a direct covenant or bond to that instinct of yours that you are seems to be the needle of your compass in a way. What you would you tell to somebody to
Well,
awaken
so
the
I
area that
think
they potentially
uh,
could be?
I'm just make I'm I think the way I have so many things to do is ideas that I like to do is not the norm. I think most people, a lot of people, I think they have one thing they've always wanted to do that they may even be a little good at. Maybe they can't sell it, they're not the best marketers, but I think most people do have a secret hidden dream or thing they really want to do.
Hmm.
I think they do.
So it's more about like uncovering what's already there.
Doing it, starting, just doing it.
A big part of I think like people why they don't start is I was very blessed with my dad was this he was trained as a spy and almost like a commando in some sense in a way. So he had this philosophy of not believing in tools, but like being sent to foreign countries without anything. And he was part of his job was to raise money or to start a new life there. So he was trained to be like a friend of the strange, so to say, where he thought of his way as he's the tool rather than he needed a big toolkit and a bag full of portions or provisions or something like this to start. And I feel like one of the things why I was able to become an entrepreneur was because I had this faith that regardless of where I want to go, I will find a way to survive. And I feel like many people who haven't learned how to fish down the road in a way stop because that's the thing where you feel I will not be able to survive if I leave the confines of what I have. How did you learn to travel in a metaphorical or actual sense and to make sure that you will meet ends meets while you are following your purpose, so to say. Does that question make any sense in a way?
Yeah, fear. Fear is keeping people trapped. Although also it's because they really don't haven't broken down what's stopping them. That's really what's keeping them. Because when you say, "Well, I don't know if I'll have enough money. I don't know where this is going," you you haven't actually told me how much money you have saved, how much money you think you need for how long, all these other things. And yet you already told me it can't be done. So often it's they just haven't put it on paper. Or when they put it on paper, it's really popular for people like we're talking about not supporting you in your dream or whatever you want to do, your idea, criticizing you. That's not possible. How do they know? How do you know you need a year of savings or 6 months of savings to leave your job or do this? You don't know how much you need. I mean, that's practical, but you don't know. Um, so you always have those fears and unknowns. I mean, if you have a family and responsibility, and you know if you quit your job, you're not going to be able to put food on the table for your kids in next week, then no, you can't just do that. Um, But when I had an example recently with a client who I was coaching in terms of this business idea. And I'm like, no, you can't leave your job. You need the money. Your family, they have time. Why don't you take the money, start the business, seed money it? Your family can be the employees. You'll love each other. It's the perfect opportunity. You have to be the slave to work still for a little while until the business gets going, and then you can quit and join them. I mean, I know that's the way a lot of businesses start. They have one person who's got the good job in the family. So there are creative ways. Most people, though, don't. They can't think out. They just like, no, it's impossible, or I need this. If you think I need this, it's never going to happen because you don't know that, right? You don't know how much you need.
Yeah, and I wrote a book about anxiety a while ago, and it's like I studied the great cognitive behaviorists of the past, Arthur Beck, for instance, and one of the things that I noticed, he was helping people get out of rumination and cognitive loops. And he said exactly what you just said. It's like most rumination is unfinished thoughts. It's like there's like you have this alarm signal, but you actually didn't put it on paper in regards to what is the object of your fear, how would you go about solving that, and it's like what would be a potential action pattern to go through it. And it's like the strange thing is that that is the antidote to calming down those emotional entities within your internal board of advisories who's screaming in a way. It's like the moment you do
Hmm.
it, the fear leaves
It's
you.
also they think too much in terms of the end instead of the journey. Like what you end up making if you're a manufacturer or you're software engineer or whatever your product or service is, it might end up being different than what you thought, but you have to get started before it changes. And if
Yeah,
you keep thinking, it has to be this way out and have everything planned, you can't do that. It also reminds me of Arnold again, where he tells a story. He didn't know he didn't know he was going to be a governor or an actor. He started with bodybuilding. All he knew is he needed to get to America. Step one. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. All I know, I need to get out of the house, drive to the mountains, take a rope, get out of the car, start climbing the mountain. I don't know if it's going to be climbable or not, or if I might want to climb something different, but I can't stay at home thinking I don't have enough vacation time when I don't even know how much vacation time I need. I might go out for the day and decide, oh, no, I don't like that mountain. I'm going to climb something different and come home tomorrow.
I love this, and it's also I think like sometimes when you've never started a business, and that's a strange rule for love too that I try to follow. It's like in order to get the girl, you need to let the princess die. It's like you have this projection of how things are in your mind. But in order to get to the real thing and to actually have it, is you need to courageously move forward and see what reality presents itself and pivot along the way.
Mhm.
And I think
And you
like,
have to like it. Because if you don't like it, and you might decide you don't like it after you get started, and that's great. Because another thing I learned, um, well, somebody told me, I didn't have to take them up on this, but when I was in my fear and panic mode, they're like, you can always go back. You can go
yeah,
back to engineering. You can go back to building homes. You can go back to buy more vending machines. Like, oh, I can, can't I? Uh, when so that's something to keep in mind.
for sure, you're absolutely right. And but what I love about the metaphor you had with Arnold, right? It's like um one of the things that I feel like people overestimate the amount of data they have when they start. And so it's like one of the things that I feel visionaries or pioneers or adventurers have is they have the sense of magic that they like integrate into the equation of moving forward. It's this idea of like maybe something in America will happen that I have no idea about it. Maybe I will meet somebody who's going to turn my life around. Maybe I'm going to learn something where it's like everything's going to change. And I feel if you've been too long stuck in the cave, you're unaware of the possibilities that will happen. It's like I'm blessed right now, for instance, in where it's my job to meet people who tell me all sorts of miraculous things, where it's like, I don't know, like a rocket scientist getting saved by a fucking sticker on a rope. It's like, it's like what are the chances of that? And I feel there's much more of that in the world where it's like if you get going, the very journey itself will change you and will also like connect you with allies, enemies, and potential resources that are not at your disposal right now. And it's like I find that magical to just remind yourself like you don't know all the things right now. Just go
Yeah.
and have the journey also change you so that others who did the same thing will recognize you as in that part of the myth, because then they usually help you too because they know, oh, this is I've had so many interesting conversations
Yeah.
with leaders in the
Yeah,
last
come to, had the thought in terms of the
piece.
future with this Neuralink where I'm not going to have one, but s- everybody else will probably soon. An implant.
Remind me after the call. I have a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who's working on exactly that. That will be a great guest for your podcast next, actually. It's like,
Oh, I'd love to yeah, I need a guest. So like to have a guest. So I spoke about how the good and bad. What comes to mind is if we could share each other's encouragement, like I'm going out on business, um, you should too. That would be helpful. Unfortunately, I think because of privacy and the way the internet really works and restriction of data and everything, you won't be able to share those experiences as easily, maybe with the herd. Um, and maybe if we did, we'd encourage everybody to and and help them a lot easier to do what what they
yeah.
could be doing. Uh,
What I'm envisioning right now, what we are trying to build, where I'm like putting my really everything on the line for is like I'm imagining an archive, like a library where those who left the herd, the pioneers, like are preserved, and you can consult them, and they share
hmm
their stories, maybe like even like an image in a way in the chat, where it's like, for instance,
hmm
if I'm consulting you in 20 years from now, and maybe I'm in the same situation, and I don't have the privilege of like having a podcast like I have right now to have a good excuse to get
hmm
so much time of you, and you tell me that one story where, and you can show me a picture in the chat, and you get encouraged that way. I feel that would be something wonderfully beautiful where we can create more people who leave whatever confines they have and find out something new. I think there's it's more about the people already there, but we need a better shelf and a way to have that accessible to so you can console your ancestors in a way, because we used to have rituals like that where so my father, when he was with the Marines, they had like rituals where they put themselves in trance and consult their ancestors when important decisions were about to be made. And I feel like we don't do that anymore. It's just like this industrialized, unromantic way of moving forward and becoming very, very sterile in our way of thinking. Anyway, I'm digressing, as you people from the English language say. Um, Give me, if you would give a masterclass on leadership, what's a story you would tell, and what would be the content of the lecture, pretty much?
We're talking about leadership now,
Yes.
right? I've never really liked the idea of a quote leader because a manager, sure, a manager at work, are you on time? Are you productivity wise? Are you doing your job? Managers, yes. Leaders, no, because what does a leader really mean? I mean, it doesn't mean crack the whip, right? That's a manager. So, story that comes to mind is when I took my nephew who had never climbed before to go climb a mountain that had never been climbed before. And in terms of leadership, you're not really leading, you're following. You have more skills and experience than the person you're leading, but you're not yanking them by the chain going, we're going to do this. If it's a team, it's in which is what we're speaking of. If you're being a leader in business, you have a team and you got the vision. I have the vision of the mountain and I'd like my team to go there. And I assemble a team that I think is capable. There's going to come a time when certain people are not capable or they're afraid or scared or not up to it. And there's a time to turn around or find a different way. Um, you're kind of like gently in the background, not really pushing them, but following them and going, oh, we can keep going. How are you good? Okay. Oh yeah, and helping them solve the problem, but not out in front where, come on, keep up with me, keep up with me. Why are you so slow? Because they're just going to get discouraged and quit. So my story with my nephew is I'm the skilled guy. What we did was if you were a climber and I showed you pictures and told you, but are you crazy? How could you take him on something like that? That's, the experienced climbers can't do that. I'm like, I broke it down step by step. And everywhere we went, I made sure that if something happened, we could get out. And if we couldn't get out that way, we could get out this way safely, really safely. He's 17 years old. His mother doesn't want to know the whole story. Um, he's out there with me because he kind of needs to be out away from school. Uh, he's I call it an extraction. Gang members were encouraging him to join a gang, and that was not going to be good, of course. So he needed to disappear for a while. So he's out there for me for a week because I wanted to climb this mountain, and and since he's with me, I'm like, you're coming to climb it with me, and so I was willing to not have to climb the mountain, by the way. That's a key thing. You're the leader. You have to be willing. It can't be hell or high water. We're getting to the top. Like some leaders think, like, we got to win the Super Bowl no matter what. It can't be that kind of all or nothing. You have to care about who you're leading. To put it in analogy, my nephew, family, it has to be like that, family. Like I wouldn't do that to a family member. I'm not going to do that to my employee. When you treat your employees like family and they know and can trust you, they're comfortable and you mean it, then it it's good. So I was willing not to get to the summit. His safety was the most important thing.
Mm.
Um, and I took him away. Here's the ironic thing. I other climbers had tried to climb this, good ones, better than me, younger, strong climbers, teams of climbers. And I talked to him afterwards. I'm like, what? You did how? Well, we didn't go that way. Why? Because it's longer, it's out of the way, and it looked uncertain. Even if we went way out of the way, it looked like we weren't sure. With my nephew, I'm like, well, that looked like the safest way and the longer way because I got to be out here with him a while, time is not. So in terms of critical thinking, what are the parameters for? We have plenty of time. So this is an option. The other way, we're going to fail fast, I can tell. And what's worse? So we went that way. We got past the part that we committed. So to do this longer way, you have to remember I told you how to you have to basal like a baseling. We had to climb up in a basal. We would not be able to return the other way. Other climbers didn't want to do that. They're like, if we go, come down, can't go back that way, can't climb it. There's too much trouble. We won't bother. It was easy enough that we went down, and my nephew was comfortable enough. We kept going, and it turned out to be easy once we did that. But the whole time, it's classic. Standing on top of this mountain is best story to tell. In terms of, I'm letting him lead, but inside my head, if he decides we're going to do something really dangerous and stupid, I'm not going to allow it. But until then, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and ask him. So we're on top. How do we get down? And I made him like we were talking about like he's 17, so he's going to try to act like a you know dumb and not really paying attention. Like I'll just wait for the answer. He's like, oh, okay. Can't get down that way. Um, um, could go down this way. I'm like, what's the third option? SOS. That's what he said. It's funny. Um, so we went down the way that he decided to go down, which in my head was the way I would have gone too. I just didn't tell him that at first. I'm allowing him to lead. And that turned out to be the way we went down, what other people had tried to climb up and couldn't. So that's a story of leading somebody who doesn't have the experience or the expertise to do something that's never been done before.
I'm still thinking. I just enjoy. Very grateful for this opportunity to even like this ability to good leadership strengthens the individual you're cooperating with, and it's such a antithetical term to classical management, where it's like you're being ordered around from one position in the factory to the next. and we rob you of your personal sovereignty, and you just do what you're told. It's the complete
Yeah.
opposite.
Those are managers. I've come to think of it this way. Those are managers. Those are not leaders. I don't care what they call them, CEOs. A leader is somebody with the vision, but then they are leading literally, not managing. I think you understand.
If you have a message to top executives of the world, how to refine themselves in regards to this, what would you tell them?
Well, so one idea I have is I know as CEO you want to be the boss and the big shot. That's fine. You want to be the quarterback. But let's say you can't be the quarterback for the Rams because you don't have the vision to lead that team to the Super Bowl, but you have the vision to be the quarterback for the Steelers. For whatever reason, you know that team better, you know that. Then quit and go work for the Steelers, not for the money. Maybe it's less, but because that's what you have true vision for. There's
Mm.
this idea that in some ways you do need those skills of CEO, like in terms of finance and planning and creative, business stuff. But the vision you can't learn. So if you don't have the passion or the vision, then I guess you could surround yourself with people with it, and that would be fine. But if you're just stuck on the beat up and plowing ahead and the money, of course, you can't compete with that. You need the innovation, the creativity. And that's really, um, I know, some companies, Fortune 500 companies, they try to bring in talent to do that. But I really believe if the guy at the top doesn't have also some of that vision and talent, it's not good. So go
Yeah,
find, if you're the CEO, go find, and you want to do that. My advice is go find your dream. Like I like photography, great. Go work for Photo Bucket. Um, I like dogs. Go work for Purina Dog Chow or some, pet store or CEO. Embed your passion with that leadership drive you have for CEO.
another person who will be a great addition potentially to your podcast library is a dear friend of mine. Her name is Barbara Hegel. She's a executive author. She's been on the Everest too, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And it was like a couple of months ago when I started Chieftain, that was my first idea to create both a digital and physical network of great leaders who cooperate on the behalf of peace and exchange of leadership principles, and also to manifest the great tactics for the next generation. And I was very overwhelmed during that time because the escalation between the war in Ukraine, which was getting so hot that it looked actually like it would engulf into a world war. And I asked Barbara, like she did some tremendous work in Syria against chemical weapons, on how she deals with the never-ending onslaught of negative news in a way. And she said something that really helped me, that I feel is applicable to what you just said. She said, like, Daniel, I always feel that I have my path, and some problems announce themselves to me as mine to solve. And if I see a problem that is outside of my scope or competence, I feel that's somebody else's path to take on it. And I like this idea of there are certain problems have a name written on them. And it's like, if you no longer are involved in the vision and you can see where you're heading, maybe it's time for you to let somebody like take the captain seat, who actually, where it's their destiny to move forward.
Yeah.
It's a, I like the idea of like the fusion of meaning and management. It's like, it's, maybe that's more important than your personal rewards. Where it's like just what you said. It's the summit is not as important as the person you're leading there. And I
Yeah,
feel,
I feel like if I was speaking to well, may come to mind. Maybe this is why they picked space exploration. Because if I was speaking to billionaires or millionaires, business people, what's the most important thing? I would say, well, go start a company doing what you really want to do, not just what's going to make money. I think they did. The space program doesn't, well, will make money, but
yeah.
no.
But
And
there's
even if you don't have $1 billion, the same thing. Like, so you have $1 million, go find something not only that fits your business skills, but your passion.
one of the things that I want to challenge you on this on is I talking to Elon Musk. He's in the news quite a lot right now. Like he's who was it? I think this was the founder of LinkedIn or something. Said something about him that he purposely started a startup in finance because he wanted to go to space later and he wanted to have the capital to get himself immersed in that industry in a way. He felt like, do you feel as a pioneer or visionary, you should sacrifice meaning first and get something to make yourself liquid to the degree where you can do that, or do you feel you should start
Well, to
right
answer
away?
to answer that question, I would have to know what Elon really, why he really wanted to go to space.
What do you
Because let's just hypothetically he wanted to go to Mars, and I happen to know some Martians. I'm just making this up, of course. That could take him on a spaceship. He would never have to have started PayPal to make $1 billion to start a space company. We could have just called our friends and said, "Hey, Elon wants to go to Mars. Can you take him?" So what is he? Why did he really start it?
What do you think if you would give us a personal analysis from your an author, rocket scientist, this
I
great.
have no idea why these people want to go to Mars or space. And some of them just want to go to orbit, some of them want to go to Mars. I think Elon wants to go to Mars, right?
He said from the quote, I'm butchering it right now, but it said like I want to die on Mars. That was one of the things he said before starting PayPal.
Yeah, well, that gets us back to he doesn't need a space program to do that. He just needs to send himself on a rocket ship, just one. He only needs to build one, like the Mars prober, and send himself there. So I don't
How
think
do you
we
think though,
actually,
do you not think that like for him, just like you have the don't you think that's his mountain, just like the unclimbed mountains are yours?
I think we'd have to ask him, is what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know.
working on it. It's like let's get
Yeah.
let's
Because I'd
develop
love
a
to know. I
podcast
would
and
love to
ask him
know.
ourselves.
One thing that's concerning to me is I've read in other publications, not Elon's, of the people working on the problem of colonizing Mars. It's already, we have global warming and environmental concerns on our own planet. It's there's no mention of that in colonizing Mars. It's the opposite already. Anything we need to do to survive, we'll figure out how to mine the soil, how to extract water from the air, whatever we need to do. No concern about the environment. That's secondary. And we're not in a survival mode. It's not like it's a life and death situation until we get there. And yet we're already, this is not in the plan. We're going to start trashing Mars before we even get there.
Hmm. What leaders in the world inspire you today, and which scare the shit out of you, or like you feel are worth a second look, where you don't trust their intentions or their use uh, for the world?
Well, the Elon Mars project is one of them. Like, I honestly wonder what the true, and not just him, the whole agenda to get into space. I wonder about that because we have enough problems on planet Earth we haven't solved. Pick one: wars, hunger, um, lifestyle, having to work too much, stress, depression. Um, we got so many problems here, and yet what is the number? Billions, trillions? Do we even know how much money into space? We could solve all the problems here. So anybody that's on the fast ship to Mars, have, I don't understand. I question because they could be taking that same amount of resources and solving a lot of problems here. So maybe, like you said, it's
Don't you
just
feel this is the equivalent of staying in the cave?
because you're not exploring.
It feels to me that there's never a rationale to be made on why to leave the cave behind and go fucking butt ass naked into the forest to into the unknown. But in the end, I think like our species has always shown that we find interesting things along the way, either in ourselves
Mhm.
or in the innovative path down the line in a way. And I feel like it's almost like it's not the goal that is important, but that we have an unclimbed mountain that we have identified in a way. And I was wondering how you think about that. It's like Maybe we,
I'm actually open ears, Daniel, because I'm really honestly still trying to understand, and I'm an aerospace engineer. The I I I get it. I've talked to people, environmental people. I had a guest who was all about climate change, which I'm not, but they're my guest. They care about climate change. They care about carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas. And I asked him, every time a rocket goes off, just one to do SpaceX testing or just one rocket, do you know how much CO2 is produced? And you're telling me not to drive my car because it makes CO2 and not heat my house in the winter as hot because it burns gas and makes CO2. And you're just burning away the CO2 like it's no problem. I'm just curious. I'm not being disrespectful or saying that's bad. I just asked him like, what do you
but
think about that?
why not be occasionally disrespectful? I think like one of the most healthiest thing is to, I don't know, have a thought tribunal and like look at the leaders we have and say, outside of the charisma that blinds us, what the fuck are you doing? And it's like some things
Yeah.
make sense, others will not make sense. And for me personally, I feel like I'm very much I study belief systems to a sickening degree, where it's just I think that's one of the focus points of what I'm doing. And one of the things that I'm always asking is what belief system is animating a person in regards to a movement. And I feel I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I feel like the a lot of these environmentalists, in a way, it's like it feels too big of a problem to solve. And the word that always comes to mind is hubris. And it reminds me of my previous self when I tried to solve a really big problem. But when I
Yeah.
talk to people, it's like, where do we start here? And it's like, for instance, I'm an advisor to help people to start businesses and help them with sales. But one of the things I sometimes have challenges with, if a person is very narcissistic, they have like this grandiose idea of what to do, but then when I figure I need to get them small enough to say, what is an actual person that needs our product and what's the intersection of something to do right now? They don't want to do that sometimes and I lose them. And I feel
Mhm.
there's some sort of like this grandiosity in that realm where it's like,
The climate change, are you speaking of that
yeah, because
climate
it's
change?
like, it's
Yeah.
because they never say something like, in
What are
this,
the solutions? What are the solutions?
what are you going to do about it? So it's like,
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, one of my businesses that failed is I think like while I study psychology, I tried to build an infrastructure for a new psychotic system in Germany because I wasn't happy with the system. And the problem was way too big and the company failed. And one of the reasons to do it was because I was too small of a person and I didn't have small enough of a case to do that. And sometimes I feel like those people, they're not really entrepreneurs. They're sometimes like thinkers and they're because engineers are actually focus on, okay, what are we building tomorrow? How do we
Yeah.
start? And I feel like that link is sometimes missing and it reveals a character and if that makes sense. Do you know what I'm meaning? Because I think my
Yeah,
English
I
is
do. I do because when I talk to him, I try to break down the problem with him. Okay, it's CO2. Uh, Plants need CO2. Let's break down the problem. How much contribution is from humans? If we got rid of the human contribution, would it change anything? If it doesn't, why are we doing it? It'll change the little. And look, what won't solve the problem? They haven't really broken it down to, like you said, it's a belief issue. Let's do something. But it's not really, is that something, what kind of effect will it get? How long? Like you say, it's not such that it's a big problem. It's just you haven't really defined the you haven't really defined it more than an abstract problem.
and that's like in that's the magic, right? It's like for me, for instance, if we're getting myself into trouble anyway, so everybody who's, who's really focused on their problem is probably not going to like me afterwards. But I feel it reminds me of the story of Noah in the Bible. And it's like, it's a great story. It's like this idea of human beings. It's not a new belief system, actually. It's like a very old thing we are wrestling with because it's human beings in the story have corrupted and destroyed the world. A big flood will come and will destroy us. One person is building an ark. And most people actually don't know the whole story. It's like, so they are saving the animals And on board, there's this conflict where one of the children of Noah gets pregnant, and
Mm.
Noah pretty much feels that human beings had their chance and they no longer deserve to survive. And then
Mm.
he wants to kill the child, and it's like twins or something. But then, like through miracle, like a dove arrives and they find land and they decide not to do it, and humanity starts again. And I
Mm.
feel like one of the things that I'm looking forward to is like, what is the story that is animating people who are speaking about these global changes? And I feel they are not hopeful, they're not courageous, and they're actually have a, I don't know, they can't forgive humanity for the errors we are making in it. So they feel fundamentally that we are a cancer to this planet, and they are treating it us as such in a way. And it's like, do you know what I'm saying? And with this belief,
It's abstract again. Like you said, like they treating it like cancer and bad people and not saying why and not breaking it down into the solutions. And yeah, Daniel, I get the psychology of those people. They're overwhelmed internally. They're overwhelmed. They're angry. They're afraid, and they're just not thinking. They're not really thinking anymore. They're stuck. They're stuck in their fear.
they're stuck in their fear. And it's like, I've been in countries, for instance, where hubris was, where these people managed to get an executive position. I was in Laos, for instance, in a while, or Cambodia, and I realized there was great communists. They also have this idea of, we've found a solution for this utopian paradigm that we can impose on everything problem. And then these people, for instance, I was in Laos, I think it was Laos or Cambodia, and they, for instance, it was Cambodia, and they killed all the entrepreneurs who were in the farm industry, and they took on these positions, but they underestimated, for instance, that actually it's really hard to run a farm. And then they had a famine afterwards anyway. And I feel like if you've
Hmm.
never had a business, you don't know how actually hard it is just to find one small tiny contribution you can make to the world. And it's like, it's that's something I feel like entrepreneurship has taught me, where it's like, it's, if you can make a micro contribution to the world, to actually helping a small pain problem, then you walk from there, and you don't go big in the beginning. And like, you can, even if you have noble
Yeah. Yeah.
aspirations,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
narcissism. That's not useful to the world in a way. And I feel like we need less grandiosity from leaders and more, but how do we actually fix this? If that makes sense. So, yeah. Anyway, what leader scares you the most right now in the world?
Yeah, when you say leaders, I think of politicians and then business people. We've talked about Elon. They don't really scare me so much as you just shake your head and, you know, um, are you speaking of leaders like you
That's
know
a good
what the
question, actually. What is actually needed? But people who are, for instance, the person who's making major waves right now, who's keeping us all entertained, is the president of the United States right now, Donald Trump.
hmm
What's your take
yeah.
on
Well, I'm glad you asked.
it?
The Because I thought about this recently with I saw YouTube where a senator, US senator, had broken down all the illegal bad things that our president had done in just the first 6 weeks. And then I thought about it and I'm like, okay, this is a senator. Here's one of them. He was saying how wrong it is that our president for $5 million, if you paid Donald Trump $5 million, you can get in front of the president. You can speak with him. Like the presidency's for sale. And I thought, I'm like, you know what? At least now you can buy it. Before it was shut out. It was good old boys network. If you didn't know somebody who knew someone, if you didn't have some political favor, if you hadn't already paid him something in his campaign, you were never going to get to talk to him. At least now you can buy a ticket. Basically, it's corruption he's not even trying to cover up, but our government's always been corrupt. Our
Yeah.
Senate has always been corrupt. This is why we have so many environmental problems, because the Congress wouldn't pass legislation to protect the people, to protect the environment, to pay people a decent. We talk about healthcare is a great example. We should have public healthcare in the United States. We don't. And about 15, 20 years ago, we had a chance to. It was Hillary Clinton working on it. I started to wonder, here's a thought process way I think whenever I go, that doesn't make sense. Why should it take so long? Why should it be so complex? How can people be making money off of it? And why is insurance companies still invest? I go, it's bogus. We had Congress then to fix this healthcare thing. They didn't. It was corruption. It's the same old thing. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I think about him is, yeah, he's kind of he's doing a lot of illegal things. They all are. All of our Congress. Well, I can't say all of them. There's probably one or two of them, or five or 10 of them that are, but to some degree.
I heard a quote from Joe Rogan that amused me a lot lately. Like he's friends with Elon, right? So he went to one of those conferences, and he said the whole audience was with donors who had contributed to some way or the other. And he said it felt like being inside of Satan's ball sack, like, just because like he felt there was such a real thing where everybody tried to buy political power in some sense.
Yeah. So on the politics, have you ever heard of the campaign finance reform law?
Tell me about it.
So this is another thing that's been on the books for 20 or 30 years. Campaign finance. So big problem with American politics, I don't know about Germany, is the politicians get elected with help from donors, donating millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a conflict of interest then when you get elected. You have to do what people paid, your donors gave you money to do, not the people. This is why we keep having problems. So the reform was there's been a law in the books that they can't vote on for 20 years at least to reform that to limit the amount of money politicians can accept, period, from anybody. It's never been passed. Now, these are the congressmen and senators, the same ones that are criticizing Donald now, that didn't pass that law the last 20 years every time it's been there and come up for vote because they're not going to vote because then they won't be able to take more money and they won't get elected. They're all criminals, is what I'm saying. All of them are to blame. Our Congress is to blame for these problems, not Donald Trump. He's off the rails, mind you. I don't agree with anything he and Elon are doing. A lot of that stuff they're doing is illegal, and I don't agree with it, but it's the kettle calling the kettle black, is the same.
Interesting. Yeah, it's if you would make a huh, if you would write a voice message into everybody's phone from who's involved in US politics, and there's a message from you, what would you tell them?
Pass campaign finance reform law. It's already there to vote on, and make free public health care. Those two things would probably solve 80% of our problems, at least 70%.
Interesting. One of the reasons why I started the company and the podcast and it's like make this shift is because I have these ideas that when people start talking to each other in a truthful manner and like getting leaders together and talking to them in a technical, the chances for peace will increase. What is your prediction for the current crisis that we have in the world? And do you feel we're heading towards war? And what is like you with your visionary capabilities? What future do you see that we are heading towards?
I can't see the future, but I'll tell you something about the war. You know, why? Oh, there was a time in this war. Are you speaking of kind of start the Ukraine-Russian wars or China
Oh,
or going to war?
I guess like in my the tribe from my father's side where I grew up, we would consult great people with prophetic powers about what's about to happen. So I just want to hear your gut take on you feel this is the future that I feel we're sailing towards, and this is what we can potentially do in order to change course if necessary.
In terms of war?
Yeah, also because I feel like it's
Okay, so war. Uh, One of the things that causes war is disinformation.
hmm,
I was watching on Netflix. There is a documentary on the atomic. It's on the atomic bomb, Oh, it's about no, it's about the Cold War with Russia and America. And the Russians had shot down a passenger aircraft, a big one, accidentally, that flew into Russian airspace by accident. But it was a true accident. The Russians didn't mean to shoot it down, and the Americans knew that. The Americans knew that Russia knew they didn't mean that the Russian leadership was upset and mad at the pilot, but they had just told the pilot before, get off your butt and start policing the area more. An American fighter flew over our airspace, the other day, and you shouldn't have allowed that. And it was true. An American fighter had flown over Russian airspace, and they didn't shoot it down. So now they're gun hunt. They're like, okay, I'm going to do my job. Well, they shoot down a passenger plane that got off course accidentally. The pilot did. He's just doing what he's told. Well, the Russians knew it. It was an accident. The Americans knew it. The Americans knew it. And yet, both sides, both the Russians and the Americans, both went on TV to say it was an act of terror. Well, America went on to say it was an act of terror of the Russians shooting down a passenger plane. No backstory on the real facts. And then the Russians went with it. They didn't tell the whole story either. They went, okay, yeah, World War II. That's how the Vietnam War got started too. It was disinformation that there was a American boat warship that was attacked, and it wasn't. And they go with this stuff to get us to go to war. So to answer your question, if we're gonna have a good future, people have to start questioning everything. And this is really difficult for them. They see it in the news officially on TV. It's really difficult not to believe that. But you could just go watch the documentaries in history. It's a fact. We've been into wars because of disinformation half the time, probably. And yet, why do we still believe what's on television or what AI tells us, the official story? We got to quit being suckers.
It's also, I couldn't agree more. And it's like one of the things that is a great tragedy. It's like I think everybody should. There's a really good book on that from actually before Jordan Peterson got famous. He wrote a book, Maps of Meaning, and I feel that's a great book that covers the subject because it explains how you react emotionally to other people who have different orientating belief systems in a way. And like one of the things I'm terrified is like when I turn on the news is how there's uh, people just follow the code that they are in rather than having like a Socratic approach to being the biggest hammer possible to throw on the idea that is
Yeah, except Daniel, here's the tough part and sad part. There are a lot of good people in the world that speak up. Professors at, colleges, universities, reporters, they just lose their job, get fired, get dumbed down. There are a lot of good people trying to good thing. This is the tough part. There are a lot of people that went out on the limb and it didn't work out for them. It takes the masses. It can't be just a few people, a few news reporters or scientists saying stuff. They get squashed and they lose, and it helps nobody then when they're destroyed. The masses, the herd, has to get together and understand this. Together, everybody has to question it. Everybody. If it's just a few people, they're going to get crucified, and that helps nobody.
it reminds me of beautiful sharing you had before when I asked you if you would be the monkey who would make the climb on the ladder. Say like you would wait for the right moment and be quick. And I feel the same thing is true if you are standing up for
But
something.
yeah, so think if all the monkeys together, all at once, climb then who are they going to squirt? That's how change happens. Who are you going to squirt? We got it. Ain't we're going to work. You're going to need a bigger gun. You need more than one squirt gun. Yeah.
Mm.
But that I don't mean to say revolt though. I just mean to start questioning the information to start with.
I
Let's get
won't
some
say
good
that it's, yeah, I
information.
think it's like the opposite of revolt, where it's like
Yeah,
just putting a stop to being animated by others in a way. It's like, for
yeah.
instance, it was quite something I like. I, for instance, turned on the news and it was like I saw the speech from Elon. It's like it's quite interesting what's happening over there. And he had this. Elon still is an engineer, so it's like he's not the, and he's like very overworked. And I feel like there was a speech, for instance, where the opposing media made it seem like he gave a Nazi salute pretty much with full conscience, and everybody who saw the full speech was like, actually, that's
You gotta be careful on how you point your fingers these days, right?
yeah, yeah, but it's like that's
Yeah,
I'm a goofy, awkward guy too. It's like I make, but it was like so
yeah.
interesting where it's like everybody knew that was not what happened,
But
but they
here's how my brain works, and I'm not being conspiratorial. I know for a fact that all our reporters are puppets. So my question is, who has to benefit from Elon looking like a fool? And I will go there next. I'm like, do they have to benefit? Could they have started that? Why would they start that? Because there's the real story. Why are they attacking Elon? Is it just for entertainment, or is there something bigger going on? A distraction. And finding the truth is going to be real hard, but I mean, rule of thumb, I don't question the first thing they show me because I'm like, that's what they wanted to show me. And I'm not being, some of my friends, they have a hard time with it. Like, you just don't agree with anything. I'm like, what's wrong with questioning everything? I'm not even saying I disagree with it. I'm just asking more questions. Just ask more questions.
yeah, big thing that made also waves was, if we are about buzzwords, is Andrew Tate's return to the United States, and he had a quote where it's like, if an enemy sets your trap, you follow it through to see where they lead you, and then you make your way back in a way. What's your idea on what happened with that particular case in a way? Because it was in the news right now. And do you have any
Yeah,
hot?
you have to tell me about it. I'm not aware of it.
He pretty much was. There was a human trafficking case against him in Romania in a way, and he got prominent a couple of wealthy, I think, like a decade ago, with running a cam studio in a way. But it's like there's lots of NSFW entrepreneurs, but he's like really this almost this
So
cartoon.
he's a human trafficker.
No, there was the charges for him that never got proved. But like I think from the situation in the media, so he had this 4 year case, I think 1 or 2 years in Romania, and he got to America in a month ago. And the very first thing is that they pretty much tried to put him in jail there too without proper cause. At least this is what we heard in a way. It's like, do you have any idea what's going on there?
So human trafficking is like I have no tolerance for that. I really feel bad for those people. So you're pushing a button in me there, but I have no idea on in terms of you mentioned um how maybe these charges were made up or not. I don't know any of the story.
I guess the thing that I want to try to tell is I'm also not like an expert in the case. I don't know anything, but it's like there seems to be a persecution wave going on in the United States at the moment, in a way. And is that something that is real, or is that something where one part of the media?
Yeah, man, we're always like look with the global warming issue we are talking about before. The scientists that disagreed with it, they were crucified and lost their jobs, persecuted basically. And they were just trying to present some other data. They weren't saying the world's coming to an end or anything crazy. Um, there's always persecution here in terms of if you don't agree with somebody, you beat them up. That's how our news, if you turn on any news station any night of the week, that's what you'll see, people beating each other up, persecuting them. I am not following your question, I don't think, right?
I don't think the question was properly asked. But I
Okay.
still like how it ended up, and I feel like, but that's a good reminder where it's like I'm thinking of Galileo, where he discovered that the Earth is not the center of the universe, and how he nearly got killed for it in a way. It's like maybe that's a good
Yeah.
reminder for our society, where it's just like maybe it's not useful in the interest of us all to burn um,
There's a
lunatic.
herd mentality, a human phenomenon, it almost seems, where people like to it's kind of like when you're in grade school and people are making fun of you and then other kids make fun of you. I mean, why is that? I don't know. Why do I mean, maybe bring it to our attention, but you don't need to there's something psychological about that in terms of, the way it happens, the momentum, I think that's almost has nothing to do with the issue, is what I think you're saying. Nothing to do with the issue, just the way the herd mentality likes to attack um, the story, which could be a fake story, a partial story, not the whole story.
What advice do you have for people right now in the world who stand up for what is right and for who are earning negative consequences as a
Yeah,
consequence?
I mentioned I have respect for them. I have respect because at some point they realize they have to, but they also know it's how much difference am I going to make unless the rest of the herd hears my story and believes me and stands up for me? And what if they don't? And most of the time they don't.
Yeah, and that's like something where I think you earlier said something super important where it's like if you can endure the persecution of the other monkeys or them throwing their bananas at you, they will look at you down the line, just like what you said, like so beautifully as a
Hmm.
encouragement to me. Maybe they start their own business, they do their own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Secret, even if nothing else, even though you go down with the ship, you've kind of inspired some seed of hope into somebody else. You made some person think different, even if it was only a few people. You've kept that alive, that spark alive. And it's kind of like a fire. You're the big fire, and they're going to put you out, but at least one of your embers is going to get thrown out there into the forest and could start another fire, or it's saved, it's influenced somebody else.
That's a beautiful way to put it, where it's like you can kill the person, but you
It's
can't.
it's it's such a sacrifice, though. My gosh.
It's crazy. It's
But
crazy. I have like the utmost respect for people where it's
yeah,
like, I hope that my path will be blessed with more comfort and
yeah.
voluntary choice of adventure. But it's like one of these reasons why I want to build the platform is to make sure you can't kill prophets anymore. And it's like this idea of like they did their part where they can do their missionary work forever. It's like I am very imbued with the idea that you have the
Oh,
end.
I'll tell you, I'll tell that this is a message to those people because I've done my own sacrificing for different causes. You do it, good job. Your job's done. You don't have to die for it. You do what you do, and that's the best you can do. You've done your part. Don't think it's your like you have to die, like literally, like not give up, keep going. Um, at some point along the way, people have to, the rest of the herd has to take up the cause. You know, don't burn yourself out, hurt yourself uh to the death because other people have to, it's other people's job to contribute.
I have a feeling they wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
I I think people like that, they are very
Yeah.
defiant and unflexible. Let's move to the last part of the interview because I know we're always running on the clock. Um, I call it Ezekiel questionnaire. It's like one of the stories that really inspired me to start the platform was the idea of like that great services of individuals never really stop. So it's like there's a topic I'm thinking about often. It's like mortality, immortality, and how to extend the ministry in a way. So this last part is a little bit about like relics for future people who will listen to this in the future. So first, like to ask if you could resurrect five historical figures as advisors for your board, who would they be?
Five people I'd like to talk to in the past. I've not really thought of this one. And also thinking of people, well, what comes to mind is I might think of a doctor, right? This is how we do a business person, a scientist, a doctor, or something like that to start with, right?
Interesting. Any names that come to mind where it's like if you can
Ma-
have them as permanent advisor, where
Yeah,
they
okay. Well, yeah. How about we'll get Tesla for science, and maybe Louis Pasteur or somebody like that for medicine. In terms of a global leader, I'm not sure. I don't think I have to skip this question.
um who do you believe is when you think of the Michael Jordan of leaders? who you come to mind. It can be a person alive or dead. It can be somebody from your own life or somebody, one person that left a mark when you were, where you, it makes you feel like when you think of the word leadership, that's the person that comes to mind.
For world leadership, is that what you
Not
said?
really, not necessarily world leaders. It's like I feel like everybody has their own definitions of it. So it's like, for instance, for me,
Mm.
I'm imbued with luminaries, teachers, and authors. I think like politicians would be the last person that will come to mind.
Mm-hmm. I know you're focused on leaders, but I'm drawing a blank on this too. You know, it reminds me when Donovan asked me to tell him in terms of songwriting and music, who my influences were. Like, that one person, you're just really the one band. And I'm like, I didn't really have any. I think I look at everybody um, with some kind of fascination and curiosity and respect, but at the same time, also a little bit of skepticism in what not completely trustworthy. And it's partially because I have a really hard time knowing if I can trust somebody. It's one of my weak non-superpowers, is that person honest or dishonest. So therefore maybe I off the top of my head don't have
That is
things
a
I can say.
beautiful, beautiful answer to the question. And then sometimes I like to ask that and see there's certain mindsets that reveal themselves by an inability to answer a question. For instance, I was with my uncle, my father in the forest. We had a campsite fire, and I asked him, what is their biggest mistake or regret? And they looked at both of each other like, that's not how we think about things. Like all these lessons had their place in turning
Hmm.
us to where we are. Or it's like, I feel like sometimes, a little poke in the right direction can reveal a more insightful and wisdom impact message than we're just having a name for the sake of a game or something. Okay. And if our ancestors would left us an advisory letter, what would you expect it would say?
Good luck. Uh, yeah, we tried. You're on your own. You're like, kind of like your parents. You're all, it's up to you now. But advisory, they're giving advice. I think it would almost be like when your parents, especially if you have brothers and sisters, get along. Like, I don't want to hear whose fault it is. Find a way to work together.
I'll write this one down. Message to current leaders. If everybody would turn in to the leaders in culture, politics, and sciences and the other big industries, and they would be forced, like Clockwork Orange style, to watch this last part of the interview. What would you tell them?
See, I think a lot of our leaders know what the right thing to do is, but they are, as we are speaking of earlier, in terms of sacrificing, where there've been politicians in the past that they didn't walk the line. They get assassinated. I think that's why JFK, John F. Kennedy, got assassinated because he wanted to do certain things that when they were not expecting him to do to make real change. So I don't know if I need to really say anything to them. They know what they're doing is not in the best interest of humanity. They're in too deep. Maybe they're getting a lot of feedback from it. I need to tell them that they don't need my advice how to make the world better. They know what the right thing to do is. They're not doing it.
If you would add one more sentence, since you've taken, for instance, a young man who was too deep into something, to the mountains to get some distance, what would you maybe tell somebody who's too deep in the dynamics of their current life, who's maybe did a series of moral errors that got them to the point where they are playing a strange game that is now deprived of purpose? What will you tell them in a way? Because I feel there's a great value also in
Yeah, yes. I think I get what your question is how do you what would you tell them? Like it's not worth it. Oh, you know what? An easy one. It's actually no matter they're never going to have peace. They're always going to be chasing they're never going to have peace with them truly have peace. They have the fear of if I don't go the way I'm told to go, supposed to go, my party lines, then I have the fear the party's going to oust me. They're going to say bad things about me. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose money, etc. But you know, you basically sold your soul, and that's not going to end well anyhow. It's not going to end well anyhow. There are a lot of people, billionaires and big politicians that doesn't end well anyhow. So miles to jump ship now and do the right thing would be my way to put it to encourage him to do the right thing. I mean, you can be a hero, you know, it's your opportunity to be a hero. At least go down a hero.
So strange how if individuals in positions of power don't have peace with their own conscience, that we will also not have peace. And I feel that's a strange dynamic and correlation there. A message for future generations. If this, and you can elaborate a little bit longer and just like take this as a time capsule. If this podcast were the only piece of your journey to survive the test of time, what message would you leave to future generations who would find this hundreds of years from now or something like this?
Well, when you say that, my first thought is as if I have some insightful advice to give them. They might already be at peace and know everything they need to know and have solved all the problems. So, what would the message wouldn't necessarily be encouragement or advice, right?
Doesn't have to be, can be a joke, can be a story, can be whatever
Yeah.
you want it to be.
Message. Hmm. One thought that came to mind is just like a science fiction movie. But if you want to know if time travel is true, if you have time travel, come back and visit me first or something like that.
Good one.
What do some other people answer for that?
Very personal, usually. It's like I'm publishing another podcast with Virgil Herring. He's one of the best golf coaches in the world. And it's usually a very simplified message of what these people stood for reveals itself. It's like just this, because technically you're gonna be their great, 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 great grandfather in some sense. So it's like, what if they find you somehow in a connection to ask you, what do you want to tell? It's so strange. It's like even, I think you and I look a little bit closer to Neanderthals than normal people in a way. You with your cool long hair and we my big fucking face. So I feel like this idea of like future generations will look at us as their ancestors and say like, what would you say to them? It's just it's a neat opportunity, I feel, to just like, what's the
Yeah,
first thing?
it all presupposes something. Like if I said, get out of the cave and go explore, they may have already explored the whole galaxy and go, yeah, we did. Duh. Um, much more than you did. So I don't know of anything. I keep thinking in terms of message, yeah, almost like a wisdom, as you suggest, which we could do. I don't know, message wise. You know what I might do if it was a recorded time capsule, I would sing them a song.
We can also do that.
Because what if so many years from now, way, way, way in the future, they didn't have music
Mhm.
and it wasn't the message, but it was the way you delivered the message. What if they had a chip in their head and they always heard music, any song ever played anywhere, the super Spotify, um, free, but they never actually saw somebody sing a song. And if you're saying my message would be like video or something, not just handwritten, they saw me singing something, a way of expression. personal expression, not out of the chip or something. That maybe it was the way of communicating and not the message itself.
Would be nice if in the editing you
Yeah, man, especially if with all the technology, they literally, they got the goggles, the whole headset, the art, the gamers have them, the eye things, virtual reality. And they've never seen anybody just, I'm not just going to talk to you. I'm going to sing you a song uh, about my girlfriend, my family, something. Wouldn't, yeah, something like
that
that.
would be super cool. And it also I never thought about the idea of like behavior as a fossil, where it's like they will not see so many things that we just take for granted right now. It's like it's I've never seen anybody ride around in a these things before we had automobiles or something like this. So it's like might be cool to this is one of my crafts and I want to present it to you. It's like
Yeah, right.
yeah, it's
What
very
was what was somebody else's message to the future?
I will send you a link afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, I don't butcher it. Okay. We can add here if you want in the future actually like a real song of yours that might be not
Well, it reminds me of the saying, if you only had one song to sing, and this is, of course, I'm a songwriter, so I have 100 songs at least. What would be your one song you sang if you could only sing one song? I'm trying to think of what song that would be for me, because that would be what my message is. Whatever in that song, if I can think of the song, I can't think of all my songs right now. If I sang it in a song, it was a message. All songs are messages. That would be the message I want to. Oh, for example, what comes to mind is uh I have a song called um Give a little Give a Little Bit, and it's the message is love is letting go of fear when you can. Love is letting go of fear when you can.
Mm.
That would be my message. There you have it. Thanks for working me through it.
Well, it's I'm touched by that actually. So I will move on to conclude the interview so I can actually make some behavioral actions
And
afterward.
then and then the second course is love is letting go of all your plans. So it's love is letting go of fear when you can. And the second time around, love is letting go of all your plans.
Mm. You would write a message backwards. You could correspond with your ancestors. What would you tell them about your journey? And what do you hope they would say in return?
Yeah, I got a lot of questions from my ancestors. Um, what would I ask them? Is that the question?
Yeah, like if we can time travel
Yeah,
exists,
so one of my
you stand back and what would you hope they would say or see when they see you?
yeah, I would ask them what they were thinking, what their childhood was like, because I think we were all affected by the trauma our parents went through, the trauma our society went through. It's like we're never breaking out of what happened before. So we tend to blame our parents, we tend to blame our ancestors when not really understanding, what it was not an easy time for them. It was worse. Maybe it was the Great Depression. Maybe they came over on a boat. Uh, uh, the job was horrible and unsafe, and you had an easy life. And we assume, like I do anyhow, sometimes that a lot of fault with them. And I would just ask them. I would ask them what made them so angry. What made them so angry?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
Anger is the source of fear, right? Um, and you take it out on everybody else. What made you so angry? Which is basically what made you so afraid, but really your actions are you're angry, you're mean. You're mean to everybody, mean to people and not loving. Why? What was so bad that you were angry? The angry, fearful life.
Last question. One of the things we are hope to bless the future with is like a tombstone that is interactive. If you grave would have an avatar of yourself, what would be the final message and what would graving of your tombstone, like a motto almost for what you
You
stood
know
for?
what? I'll just use my own logo. I actually trademarked this. It doesn't have it on here. But I drew this bird here. Um, say it with the song. Well, this would be my avatar.
I guess so. You can choose, right? It's like I think like deepfakes, everything is possible in a way.
Oh, is the avatar supposed to look like you? Like look like a man or a long-haired guy or something like that?
Well, it will be quite funny if you make it. I think you can do whatever you want. So if you want to appear as a big bird, you can. It would be quite the buzz actually.
I can't really imagine my tombstone. Uh, haven't thought about it.
Do you have a motto that you like feel like encapsulates your life or something you feel that this describes the culture that you try to live by? An epitaph, so to say. It's like I was in Berlin a while ago and it was like found this Jewish cemetery and it was so beautiful and it was like it was so strange to me. They all had like one verse, a quote, or like a
Hmm.
biblical verse on it or something they felt. It was so interesting. Like now we have this infinite amount of like preserving information, but they had just one line. I thought that was kind of beautiful. I was just
Hmm.
wondering, like, as a question that's maybe too hard to answer to conclude the interview.
I would
If
say
anything,
born free, born free.
it has been an honor to go on this conversational adventure with you. Tell us where we can find you, and also, Daniel, how can we support you in all your interesting ventures? I'm a big fan of just not like also like connecting people and giving the world an opportunity to give back. So where can we find you?
Hmm.
How can we enjoy your many creations, content, and what is something listeners potentially can do for you to return the favor of you courageously sharing so many pieces of your story with us?
Two things. One, listen to my podcast, which is danielstih.com. It's Daniel Stih.com. And that's also my website, danielstih.com. And so you can find out the other things I'm up to. But listen to my podcast, the Daniel Stih podcast. Please like it. And then my book, which is the Because You Can, which is made to help people take the first step towards making the changes we're talking about, doing what they want to do. And then you're leading by example.
Any last words? Otherwise, I think we have it for today. And then I would like to express my gratitude once more and leave you in peace for today because this was quite a long interview. Even though I
Yeah,
could.
it comes back to what we were talking about for a little bit. Doing the thing you want to do. When we're talking about how do you know your intuition or leave your job or do this or a business, how do you know go into that business and you're trying to be narcissistic, make it real big? Like, what's your path? Uh, and if you're a leader, where should you take people? What should you, in business be doing? Um, I think if everybody was integrating their business or whatever they need to do to make money with their passion, more or less, maybe forget about the money to start with. I know it sounds cliche. I don't mean to quit your job and go on a world tour. I mean, do the thing in your heart you feel you're kind of like you're doing with what you're doing now, Daniel. Doing what you feel you should be doing, the world would be perfect. I think people staying stagnant and just doing the daily grind is just a waste of a life and not helping society. You're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting society because you have something to contribute. You're not doing it. You need to. Oh, here it is. Here's my one-liner. If that's you, you are wasting time. Quit wasting time.
It's been an honor and a privilege to learn from you. And I think I'm living testament to what you said is true. It's like I started a dream right now of meeting interesting people and building a dream. And here I am learning from a best-selling author, a rocket scientist, visionary, and mountain climber, and all these other beautiful things that this man has to do. I want to also express gratitude to everybody who listened for this legacy-based interview. And I'm looking forward to meet you again in the next episode. Thank you, everybody.